Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku was reincarnated as Kakashi with an unstoppable quirk? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Kakashi died how he'd always wanted to, protecting his village. Just as he was born to do. The thought settled peacefully in his mind. He'd protected Konoha, his precious students, his friends, and all of those in between one last time before he died. He knew his students were probably grieving over him now, but that was honestly the least of his concerns. Because Kakashi had died. So why in the world was he alive again? The notion hit him like a truck. He hadn't thought much of it before, aside from fleeting thoughts that this place wasn't Konoha, thoughts that perhaps his body was too small, too weak. It was like the memories of his life had always been caged in the back of his mind, but now they were being moved at him, shoved into his mind until they overwhelmed his senses. He gripped at his hair and groaned, doubling over, mind flooding with memories he'd only vaguely remembered beforehand. He could hear people rushing around him, hands grabbing his arms, voices asking if he was okay. Chiba-kun? Chiba-kun? The name registered in Kakashi's mind as his own. He knew he should answer, but the overwhelming presence of the memories in his mind kept him from doing so. Someone call an ambulance. Is this his quirk? Did Chiba-kun get his quirk? All of you, please go sit down. Chiba-kun, can you hear me? He groaned as he nodded, but the motion sent his mind reeling again. He's 5 years old and he's found his father dead on the floor. He's 9 years old and his teammate is pinned under a massive rock. He's dying. He gives Kakashi his eye and asks for a promise that Kakashi can't keep. He's 10 years old and he's killing his other friend with a lightning bolt through the chest. He's 12 years old and his sensei and the man's wife are dead. He's 21 and one of the most notable clans in the village, his friend's clan, have all been massacred by one of their own. The one who did it is also one of his friends. He's a killer. He's a killer. He's a killer. He's assigned a team of children that he can't protect. A team of genin that bring back memories he'd rather run from. He's 29 and he's dying. He's 29 and dead and speaking with his father for the first time in 24 years. He's 29 and he's revived from death by the whim of the very man who'd killed him. He's 30 and he's finding out that his teammate had never died, that he'd been alive, that he'd been the reason for all of the losses Kakashi had suffered since. He's 31 and promoted to leading the village he loves, but does not feel fit to lead. He's 43 when he finally hands the hat over to one of his students. He's 50 when he dies. He's 50 when he dies. He was 50 when he died. He died. The memories burned in his retinas. His left eye felt like it was being sliced open and dissected. His skin felt as though weapons were cutting him open, splitting his skin, each wound aimed to kill. A scream ripped from his lips and he clutched at his eye, his hands finding purchase in something wet and sticky. Chiba-kun, I need you to talk to me. What's wrong? My eye, he managed out. My eye. Hands pulled his own away from his eye, and he heard a gasp. Chiba-kun, you're going to be okay. An ambulance is on its way. You're going to be okay. Kakashi didn't feel okay. He opened his good eye and found his hands coated in blood. Fear spiked up in him. Rin's blood? No, it's his. His blood. From his eye. It's bleeding. Chiba-kun. A voice broke into his thoughts. The paramedics are here, they're going to take you to the hospital and make you feel better, okay? Kakashi nodded and firm arms gripped his torso and hauled him towards where Kakashi could hear sirens wailing. An Iami prodded at his eye the second he was set down, and Kakashi screamed as more memories flooded him along with the blinding pain. His vision blacked out. Kakashi woke up in the hospital, the sun setting outside the window nearest to his bed. He blinked sunspots out of his vision and sat up, trying to assess the situation. His left eye was covered in an eye patch-like bandage, the cloth covering most of the left side of his face. He reached up to prod at it, only for the skin underneath to feel sore. He decided to leave it alone. His right arm was attached to an 4. Kakashi was tempted to pull it out and go to the bathroom to look in the mirror, but then he found himself remembering what Sakura had threatened last time he'd done that, and decided that perhaps it wasn't worth it. Instead, he found the call for help button on his hospital bed and pressed it. Not a minute later, a nurse and doctor rushed into the room. They weren't Konoha medic Nin, Kakashi realized immediately. But this isn't Konoha. He died. He'd been living in this world for 4 years now. This world didn't have ninja, it had quirks and heroes. The acknowledgement felt heavy in his chest. He was having trouble distinguishing one reality from the other. He hadn't had that problem before, had he? No, he hadn't truly remembered the other one before. Now he did. His head throbbed for a moment, before the sensation faded again. "Chiba-kun," the nurse said to him gently. "It's good to see that you're awake. How are you feeling?" "My eye hurts," Kakashi responded. "Other than that, I'm okay. I'd like to know what happened." The nurse blinked and turned back to the doctor, both of them looking surprised by his question. Kakashi wasn't sure what would be surprising about his. Oh right. He's in the body of a 4-year-old. Speaking so clearly and calmly after a traumatic experience probably wasn't normal. "Well, Chiba-kun, we've established that you've gotten your quirk," the doctor said. "Unfortunately, it seems that the process was rather violent, and we're also not entirely sure what your quirk is. We can remove the bandages and get you a mirror, though, if you'd like to see it." Kakashi nodded. "I'd like that." The doctor smiled gently at him and then nodded to the nurse, who disappeared off to go find a mirror. The doctor approached Kakashi and reached for the bandages, gently beginning to remove them. The tape peeled painfully off of his skin and he winced. "Sorry, I'm trying to be gentle," the doctor responded, and his fingers slowed as he pulled off the bandages. "There we go." The nurse returned with the mirror, and the doctor held it up for Kakashi. His breath hitched in his throat at the sight of his reflection. The scar that he'd gotten on the Canopy Bridge mission bisected his eye once again, but that was hardly the most alarming part of his appearance. The scara in that eye had turned black, and the Sharingan shone brightly against the darkness, the red painfully familiar. Around his eye, his skin was cracked. He reached up and touched his face gently, finding that the skin around his eye and along the cracks felt cold. Like death. He recognized the black scara. This was Edo Tensei. His past life mixing with his present life. He gulped and lowered his head. "Thank you," he told the doctor, and handed the mirror back to him. "I understand this must be difficult for you." "I'm okay," Kakashi said, and then it hit him that there are people that this would definitely be difficult for. "Where are my parents?" "They both had to leave for work, however, they'll be back soon." The doctor replied. The tract. His family, Chiba Takeo's family, that is, was poor. Both of his parents had to work as often as they could to make ends meet, and therefore waiting around in the hospital for Kakashi to wake up wasn't a good idea. "That's okay," he replied. "Could someone call and tell them I'm fine? They don't need to worry about me." The doctor pursed his lips. "I'll have the receptionist send the word." "Are you sure you're okay, Chiba-kun?" This was a very intense experience. Kakashi nodded. He was okay. His mind was settling down, no longer tearing itself at the seams with all the memories he'd gained. His quirk, whatever it was exactly, seemed to be bringing back his old life. It seemed to have reincarnated Hatake Kakashi into the body of Chiba Takeo. "Do you mind if I cover your eye back up?" the doctor asked, and Kakashi shook his head to signal that he didn't mind. As bandages covered his eye from sight once more, he wondered if the memories of his past life were all his quirk could do, or if there was more to his newfound power. He was released from the hospital the next morning and told to take it easy. His parents brought him back home, fussing the entire way over his face. Kakashi had been given bandages to continue to cover the left side of his face with, but due to a healing quirk having been used on his eye, the wound was already as healed as it was going to get. At this point, the bandages were just to hide his face from view. Not that he was complaining. "Are you sure you feel okay?" his dad asked. "You're acting funny." Kakashi was honestly having trouble remembering how he'd acted before his quirk had manifested. He knew what had happened in his life. He was born the second child of the Chiba family, with an older sister and a younger sibling on the way. He was 4.5 years old at the moment. His best friend's name was Ken, and they were in the same kindergarten class. Ken had been nearest to him when his quirk had manifested, but Kakashi hadn't seen him since. The facts were there. The memories were there. But he didn't remember how he'd acted before he'd come to remember his previous life. He didn't remember who Chiba Takeo was at his core. All he knew was Hitaki Kakashi. "I'm sure, Dad," he replied. "Just a bit scared of my quirk is all." His quirk was confusing him. It must have been a mutation because it wasn't like anything else in his family. His mother's quirk was called calling, which let her state the name of an object and it would instantly come to her, as though she were summoning it. The quirk didn't apply to objects larger than herself. His older sister had manifested the same quirk 2 years ago and had since taken to calling out book anytime Takeo was near her, just so the book would hit him in the head when it came flying towards its summoner. She was annoying like that. His father's quirk was much less useful. He could wave his hand and a bunch of leaves would appear and swirl around at his command. An essentially useless quirk. It was great for instant leaf piles, though. So, taking all of that into consideration, Kakashi assumed his quirk was a wild card. Fantastic. They pulled into their driveway, and his mother immediately rushed to help him out. Just because his vision was a little weird because he couldn't see out of his left eye didn't mean he didn't know how to get out of a car. He scowled at her, which automatically took her aback. Was Takeo a smiley kid? Was that the issue? Had Takeo been a happy-go-lucky personality and now Kakashi's reserved personality was making them think he wasn't feeling okay? He flashed his mom a big smile and she immediately relaxed. So he had been that sort of kid. That act would be exhausting to keep up. "I'm gonna go take a nap if that's okay?" he told her as he made his way to the front door. She smiled at him. "Sure, sweetheart. Get lots of rest. When you wake up, I'll have some food ready for you, yeah?" He gave her another nod and a grin and then put his tiny hands on the door handle to open it. Behind him, his dad said goodbye to his mom and got back into the car to go to work. Kakashi pushed open the door and made his way up to his room. He climbed into bed and closed his eyes, but he didn't fall asleep. He knew his mom would come check on him. Not 10 minutes later did she slowly open the door and step inside, her movements quiet. He felt her hand brush the hair out of his face, thumb tracing over the bandages on his face. "Oh, Takeo," she murmured. "Sleep well, baby." She stepped back outside his room and Kakashi waited a little bit longer before getting up and heading to the bathroom down the hall. Once he got inside, he locked the door behind him. Privacy at last. He climbed onto the step stool in there and looked at his reflection in the mirror. Silver hair hung around his face, and the one eye he could see was a dark gray. He looked the same as he had the first time around. He reached up and pulled at the bandages, revealing his cracked skin and black scara. His fingers twitched as he looked at the Sharingan. He bit his lip and leaned forward towards the mirror, fingers prodding the skin under his eye. "Why did you manifest with my quirk?" he asked the Sharingan quietly, voice barely more than a whisper. "Why are you here with me, Obito? Didn't you leave such a long time ago?" The Sharingan's tomo swirled. A vortex appeared. And suddenly Kakashi wasn't alone in the room anymore. He jumped back in surprise, falling off the stool, back slamming into the wall with a heavy thud. The person who joined him in the room yelped in surprise too, quickly brandishing a knife at Kakashi. They both stopped. They stared at each other. "Kakashi?" the man asked him, voice incredulous. Kakashi's eyes scanned the man's figure, his face which was half marred, his hair short, one of his eyes black with a red Sharingan and the other purple. "Obito?" he asked, just as skeptical. Yes? Where are we? And why are you so?" Obito leaned down. "Short." Kakashi blinked. "We're in my bathroom." "Takeo?" His mom's voice yelled, and he heard footsteps racing up the stairs. "Takeo, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom," he yelled back, panicking. "I just startled myself with my reflection, is all." She stopped outside the bathroom, breathing heavily. He heard her try the door. Takeo unlocked the door. "I'm okay, Mom, really?" He tried to sound happy, but in the face of Obito Uchiha, he wasn't sure he was pulling it off. Obito was looking back and forth between the door and Kakashi, trying to figure out what was happening. Kakashi quickly raised a finger to his mouth to signal to Obito to keep quiet. "Are you sure, baby?" "Yes, I'm sure. I'll be out in a minute. Could you make me lunch? I'm really hungry." A long pause. "Of course, baby. I'll make your favorite." Kakashi wasn't sure what his favorite was, but at least she was agreeing. He relaxed. "Thanks, Mom," he replied. He heard his mom sigh on the other side of the door and soon heard her footsteps go down the stairs once again. Only then did Obito speak up. "Okay, what the F is happening?" "I don't know," Kakashi hissed. "What the hell are you doing here?" Obito raised his hands in exasperation. "That's what I'm asking you." "Shoo." Kakashi shushed him. "Do you want her to come back?" "No," Obito whisper yelled at him. "But I'm not even sure who she is. You called her your mom, but I know your mom died when you were young. And she called you Takeo. I'm confused as F right now and you're not helping, Kakashi." "Wait, are you even Kakashi?" Kakashi sighed and rubbed his hands over his face. "Obito," he huffed. "From what I can tell, I've been reincarnated." Obito stared at him. "I only started remembering things a day or so ago when my quirk manifested." He gestured up at his eye and the surrounding cracks. "It looks like Edo Tensei, doesn't it?" Obito leaned down and inspected it. "It does. But what the hell is a quirk?" Kakashi sighed. "This world isn't like the one we're used to. It's got people with superpowers unique to them and stuff. No chakra." "No chakra?" Obito echoed and then pointed at Kakashi's face. "Then how'd you end up with this?" Kakashi shrugged. "I don't know. I have no clue what's happening, much less why you're here." Obito huffed. "Well, you're helpful, Kakashi." Kakashi scowled at the nickname. "Thanks. I try my best." Obito rolled his eyes. "All right, so like, what? You summoned me here or something?" "Summoning? Maybe I did." His mother's and sister's quirks allowed them to summon anything to themselves if they called its name. He had stated Obito's name right before calling him. Was his quirk the ability to summon the people from his world? "Wait, that was a joke," Obito said quickly. "Don't tell me I'm actually summonable." "I don't know," Kakashi replied. "Look at your reflection." Obito frowned and turned to look at himself in the mirror, a small yelp coming from his lips. "I've been dead Gaified." "Shut up," Kakashi hissed. "And yes, you look like you've been Edo Tensei'd. I think my quirk summoned you from the afterlife." "Well, that's just plain rude, Kakashi." Obito crossed his arms, turning back towards Kakashi. "Me and Rin were having fun, you know." "Sorry," Kakashi deadpanned. "Next time I accidentally summon someone, I'll make sure to send a letter in advance to let them know." "That would be nice," Obito returned, sarcasm lacing his tone. "But seriously, can you, like, unsummon me? Not that I don't like seeing you again, especially when you're so tiny and cute." Obito bent down and ruffled Kakashi's hair. "But seriously, I don't like having to be stuck in this tiny bathroom with you when I was in the middle of something." Yeah, whatever." Kakashi pushed his hand away from his hair. "I'll unsummon you as soon as I figure out how." And that was the issue. Kakashi didn't know how to unsummon Obito. His mother and sister couldn't unsummon the objects they'd called to them. Was that going to be the case here? Was Kakashi just stuck with Obito for the rest of eternity? Absolutely not. He glared at Obito and thought about what he'd done to summon him. He'd asked why Obito was here. Time to do the opposite. "Go away, Obito Uchiha." And just like that, Obito's figure swirled out of existence. Exhaustion flooded over Kakashi and he swayed on his feet, hand reaching out to steady himself against the wall. It took him a minute to recover, blinking. Black spots out of his vision until it cleared completely. Note to self: apparently summoning people comes with consequences. He unlocked the door to the bathroom and stumbled downstairs until he got to the kitchen, where his mom had prepared a grilled cheese for him. Seriously? This was his favorite? "Takeo? Are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine, just tired all of the sudden," he said. That was an understatement. He felt like he might pass out at any second. He pulled himself into a chair and then looked at his food. Maybe eating would help. He reached for the sandwich, arms heavy and eyelids heavier. His mom bit her lip in front of him, watching him closely. Concerned. He needed to keep up the act of being fine, so he bit into his sandwich. As he ate the grilled cheese, he started to feel a little bit better. Not fantastic by any means, but like perhaps he wasn't about to pass out. He'd eat and then go back to his room and actually sleep this time. Hopefully, that would get rid of the effects of using his quirk. That's exactly what he did. Kakashi walked down the stairs the next morning, feeling much better once he'd slept. He'd done the math when he'd woken up and figured out that he'd slept for 18 hours straight, which felt about right given how exhausted he'd been. It was 6 in the morning now, and his parents were both awake, along with his sister, Ichika. "Oh, Takeo, you're awake," his mother exclaimed, hurrying over to him. "How do you feel?" "Better," he replied. "I was really tired." "I can tell, you completely missed dinner. Here, we don't have any more food, but you can have my bagel if you'd like." "Mom, you're PRNT," he pointed out to her, gesturing to her swollen belly. "The last person in this household that should be skipping meals is you." She bit her lip, looking unhappy, but his dad quickly came to back him up. "Takeo's right, you need to take care of yourself first, honey. I'm sure he's fine. Ichika, give him some of your toast, please." Ichika grumbled but handed over one of her slices of toast with a muttered, "Why are you guys freaking out? It's not like he was dying or anything." "Your brother was in the hospital," his mom scolded. "Show some concern, will you?" Ichika mumbled out a sorry. Honestly, Kakashi preferred Ichika's reaction to his parents. "Speaking of your mother being PRNT," Dad spoke up. "We have some news for you guys." "Is this really the time, love?" "Good as a time as any," Dad replied, and then kissed his wife's head. "So, turns out we're having twins." Kakashi tried not to visibly scowl at that. "And that means you two are going to have to share a room." "What?" They both asked in unison. "Yeah," Dad rubbed the back of his neck. "The thing is, we don't have the money to buy a new house, and Takeo, your room is the closest to ours, so the twins are going to have to share that room while you move in with Ichika." Kakashi and Ichika looked at each other, and for the first time since remembering his past life, he knew exactly how Takeo would react. "Absolutely not," both him and Ichika said. "You don't really have a choice," Mom started, but was cut off by the doorbell ringing. They all stopped and looked at the door. "I'll get it," Dad said, and left to go greet whoever was at their house at 6 in the morning. Ichika kicked Kakashi in the shin. He glared at her. Overall, his thoughts on siblings were that they essiki. He preferred being an only child. Heavy emphasis on the only because he also wasn't a fan of this whole having parents again thing. They fussed too much. Come in," his dad said from the doorway, and Kakashi turned back around to find 2 adults in suits following his dad into the kitchen. He looked at his mom and saw panic written all over her face. At first, he wondered if it was because these were clearly federal agents, but then he realized that it was because the house was a disaster and they had impromptu guests. "Honey, kids, these are Agents Suzuki and Takahashi from the Hero Public Safety Commission," Dad said as he showed the 2 agents inside. Apparently, the HPSC heard of Takeo's quirk manifestation incident and were concerned enough to decide to come check in on him. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at them. He hadn't put the bandages back over his face since he'd taken them off, so his cracked skin, scar, and red eye were on full display. He also hadn't managed to acquire a mask anytime recently, so his face was also on full display. With his family, he hadn't minded as much, but suddenly he felt vulnerable. "Good morning." They both bowed. "Sorry to barge in so early," Takahashi said. "It's fine, so what's this about?" "Oh, well, the HPSC keeps tabs on quirk manifestations that lead to hospitalizations, especially because quirks that manifest violently are often violent in nature. We just wanted to check in on Takeo-kun here to see if he's okay and if anything weird has happened with his quirk. Or if he knows what his quirk does at all." "Isn't it just the weird eye thing?" Ichika asked. "The hospital said that you guys had noticed a personality shift," Suzuki pointed out. "Quirks often have a direct influence on personality, so we figured this might have something to do with it. All eyes turned to him. Kakashi didn't say anything. Instead, he weighed his options. He didn't know anything about the HPSC, so he had no clue if telling them what his quirk could do would land him in a science lab or if they'd simply write down what he said and go with it. If you tell us what your quirk is, we can file it for you guys. Save a trip to the station, Takahashi tacked on. I don't think Takeo knows what exactly his quirk is yet. He's been asleep ever since he got home. His mother started. What if I said my quirk was potentially very dangerous? Kakashi spoke up. What would you do? The two agents' eyes widened. His parents' breath hitched behind him. Well, that would depend on how dangerous, Suzuki said carefully. For some quirks, we suggest young users visit an advanced quirk therapist and take quirk suppressants. For example, we had a young lady a year or so ago develop a quirk that caused her to emit radiation, and she's been taking quirk suppressants ever since to keep her from poisoning the people around her. However, in most cases, users with dangerous quirks are simply cataloged so that we can easily identify the quirk should it be used to cause harm. Kakashi nodded slowly. Takeo, his mother started. Did you activate your quirk yesterday in the bathroom? Kakashi nodded. I did. The agents looked even more interested. What did it do? It summoned a person, Kakashi simplified. Your quirk summoned a person? Ichika asked. Like how I summon things? Yes, basically, Kakashi said, still eyeing the agents. We see, Suzuki said. Well, we'll catalog your quirk for now, and if we have any more questions, we'll make sure to stop by. She trailed off as she reached into the briefcase she'd been holding to pull out some papers. Here, we'll log your quirk real fast. What would you like to call it? Kakashi considered his answer for a long moment, the tense silence filling the room, before he responded. Edo Tensei. The HPSC came back a week later, this time with a far greater request. They also had a child with them. Kakashi had questions about the child. We'd like to see Takeo-kun use his quirk, Takahashi said after brief greetings were exchanged. This will help us get a gauge of his abilities. He flashed a good-natured smile probably meant to calm Kakashi's parents. I'd also like to see your quirk, Ichika snarked. He's been refusing to use it all week. All eyes turned to him. Kakashi figured this was the point where he had to give in and actually use it, even though he wasn't particularly interested in showing off for the HPSC. He sighed and pulled the headband off of his face that he'd since acquired to cover his eye. I'd like to see you, Obito Uchiha. He felt a strange tug in his eye before Obito was standing in front of him again. Obito yelped in surprise as he jumped back and pulled out a knife, just like he had last time. Kakashi, why the hell do you keep doing this? Kakashi sighed and shrugged. This time I was asked to. You really think I wanted to see your ugly face again? Obito stalked forward, leaning down into his personal space. You know, I can't believe I forgot what an absolute a-hole you are. Kakashi agreed with the sentiment, but decided to change the subject. There was something he wanted to test anyways. Do you still have chakra? Obito paused. Yes, you don't. No, Kakashi replied. A sadistic grin crossed Obito's face. Do you mean to say that I could absolutely throttle you right now and there's nothing you could do about it? Not necessarily, Kakashi hummed. After all, I'm still in control of whether or not you even exist here. Obito gaped. Kakashi, I swear to the sages if you unsummon me. Go away, Obito. He told him, and then Obito vanished again. His family and the agents plus the random child all looked at Kakashi in surprise. Kakashi felt exhaustion wash over him again, but this time it wasn't as bad as last time. Perhaps his body was starting to get used to his quirk. So that was Obito. He's the only one I've summoned so far, but I might be able to summon others. Mom started, fiddling with her fingers anxiously. Do you know that man? Kakashi shrugged non-committally, once. Silence fell over them all. Suzuki cleared her throat. Well, in that case we are indeed very intrigued by what Takeo-kun can do. If you don't mind, we'd like to ask you to consider letting us enroll him. Enroll him? Mom asked. Yes, Suzuki said and gestured to the child next to her that Kakashi had been wondering about. Meet Hawks. He's 11 years old and has been training with us for several years now. Hawks, would you like to tell Chiba-san about your experience with us? Hawks grinned, his smile bright and beaming, reminding Kakashi of Minato and Naruto. Sure. So the HPSC took me under their wing. He winked and held up one of his large red wings to make that pun really hit home. Oh, so he was one of those types. And I've been training with them ever since. They're really nice. I get 3 square meals a day and lots of exercise, and they teach me more than I would have learned in a normal school. On top of it all, I get to use my quirk to help people, and one day I'm going to be a big-shot hero. Kakashi studied Hawks closely. He was lean with muscle, not malnourished in any way that he could see. The plumage of his wings was a bright red, which in birds meant that the creature was healthy. Kakashi figured the same applied to Hawks. He was, all in all, probably telling the truth about how the HPSC treated him. Kakashi turned his gaze towards his parents next, studying their reactions. Mom looked nervous, still fiddling with her fingers while Dad seemed to be considering it. Ichika, on the other hand, looked like she was checking Hawks out, despite being several years too young for him. It would essentially be like going to a hero boarding school, Suzuki continued her pitch. Except the catch is that we'd be paying you to let us take care of him. Tokuin's quirk is of interest to us, and he'd be in good hands with us. His parents looked between each other. How much would you be paying us? Dad asked hesitantly. 5 million yen a year. Takahashi replied evenly. Until he turns 18. Kakashi did the math. That was 70 million yen by the end of the term. His family would be well off and happy if they took the deal, able to support themselves, Ichika, and the twins. But Mom and Dad wouldn't want to give him up, even for the money. He knew that much. I'd like to go, he spoke up. He knew that his family was poor, he knew that they'd need the money, especially with twins on the way. And besides, it wasn't like he was really their son anymore. He didn't belong here. It would be better for them all if Kakashi went with the HPSC. Takeo. Please, I want to do this. He pleaded. This sounds like a lot of fun and... He fished for an excuse to not want to stay and found a very convenient one. I really don't want to have to share a room with Ichika. Dad snorted. Hawks beamed. You're gonna have so much fun. We might even get to train together or have sleepovers or something. Suzuki chuckled. I'm sure we could arrange for Takeo-kun to hang out with Hawks often. He'll also have plenty of other peers to spend time with. We'll have to talk about it, Mom started. She would be the hardest one to convince about this whole situation, but Kakashi figured that she'd come around eventually. Please, take your time, Takahashi said. We'd love to have Takeo-kun with us, but we would hate to pull him away from his family if you're not all willing. We'll consider it and get back to you later, Dad said, and that was the final note. The agents handed over a card with a phone number on it and told them they'd like their final decision by the end of the week. It didn't even take a week. Mom got fired from her job due to being too far along with her PR agency, and without her paychecks, they didn't have enough money to stay afloat. It was either move to a smaller, cheaper house that wouldn't have enough space for all of them, or send Takeo to the HPSC and take their money. So that was what happened. Kakashi walked through the vast halls of the Hero Public Safety Commission, Hawks by his side, excitedly chittering about the cafeteria food and how awesome the training is. The sun outside was bright, but the building's windows were tinted, dimming the effect while still lighting up the hallways. Kakashi could see the city spread out before him and found that the view reminded him of hours spent at the Hokage Mountain, looking out at Konoha and the people he so dearly loved amongst it. And this is my room. Hawk's wing pointed towards a door. You won't be on this floor with me since you're so young, but just keep it in mind if you ever want to visit me. Kakashi nodded at him appreciatively. I will. Come along, Chiba-kun. Suzuki said, gesturing for Hawks to go into his room, which made the boy's shoulders slumped upon realization that he was being kicked out of the tour. We've got a lot to do today. What kinds of stuff? Here at the HPSC we like to give you a new name to go by instead of calling you by your real name. Like Hawks. Suzuki hooked her thumb over her shoulder towards where Hawks had disappeared into his room. On top of that, we'd like to get a better gauge of just what the people you summon can do, In the safety of one of our high-class training rooms, of course. From there, you'll get a room to yourself and get acquainted with the building and people in it. Ma, that's a lot for one day. Can't say I'll be able to do much after the Quirk assessment though. Summoning him earlier already exhausted me. I'm not sure I have the energy to do it more than once. Kakashi admitted. He wouldn't be surprised if pulling people back and forth across the line between life and death was what was draining him so much. The initial pull wasn't so bad, but then putting them back drained more energy. Regardless of his mental age, Kakashi was still in the body of a 4-year-old. He simply didn't have the strength or stamina built up yet to summon someone multiple times in a day. Suzuki grinned. That's exactly the sort of information we're interested in. Kakashi hummed and kept walking behind her. He was about 2 steps behind her, practically running in order to keep up with her strides. Him and his tiny legs. Was he going to have to go through PBRTY twice? Why couldn't he have spawned into this world as a fully formed human, huh? Why did he have to grow up twice? Kakashi distinctly remembered all of the times he'd had to adjust how much power he put into throwing a kunai, all the times he'd tripped and fell on his face in the field because his legs had gotten longer, all the times he'd forgotten to pack deodorant for his mission because he wasn't used to needing it. Having to go through PBRTY twice was bullshit, in his professional opinion. He wasn't looking forward to it. But that was years from now. He was a toddler at the moment and that was okay. He could handle being a toddler. His only issue would be childlike mood swings, right? Kakashi blanched at the prospect of himself, collected as he was, having a mental breakdown over being denied chicken nuggets. Of course he would be denied chicken nuggets. Hawks was here. It would be insensitive to eat birds in front of another bird. So that meant that Kakashi just needed to calculate all of the potential things he could have a mental breakdown over and prepare himself to deal with them logically. In here, Suzuki gestured him into an office, where there was a strict-looking woman sitting at a desk with a single empty chair sitting across from her. Kakashi made his way to the seat and clambered up onto it. Suzuki bowed and left the room. Kakashi blinked at the woman. The nameplate on her desk simply said Director. Good morning, he greeted. She nodded at him. Good morning. Let's get to work on a hero name for you, shall we? I was thinking perhaps Necro or Shokin. Kakashi cringed at the names. No. She pursed her lips at him. Very well. How about? All the people call me Kakashi, he suggested. Could that work? The people you summon call you Kakashi? She asked, raising an eyebrow at him in confusion. Why would they call you that? Kakashi fished for an answer. I don't know. Maybe I look like someone they used to know. She pursed her lips. I see. Kakashi is fine, I'd suppose. Any other ideas? Kakashi frowned. Why did he even need a new name? Couldn't he just be nameless and go with that? Nameless, almost like he'd been in NB. Hound, he suggested. The woman's eye twitched, as though she were finally starting to realize that she was asking a 4-year-old for name suggestions. Now why would we call you that? I like dogs, Kakashi responded cheerfully. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Perhaps we should go back to my suggestions. I like Hound or Kakashi, Kakashi said adamantly. Part of him realized that this would be the ideal time to WHP out the 4-year-old emotional breakdown in order to get his way. Maybe that was something he should test out. Emotionally manipulating these people could be helpful, and it would be easy since he still had the toddler card to pull. Though, he'd likely have to prepare different tactics for when he no longer had cute going for him. Fine. She huffed adamantly. Hound, Takahashi smiled appreciatively at the name. Not bad. Thanks, Kakashi responded. Not very heroic, but it sounds cool, eh? Sure does, he responded. Now let's get to work. We're going to focus on finding out the specifics of how your quirk works. For example, you called out a name before you were able to summon that man, right? The two of them stood in a massive room that Kakashi'd been informed was called Training Room Beta. According to Hawks, he usually used it for flight practice, which seemed fitting seeing as the ceilings were just as tall as the room was wide. Kakashi didn't know just how large the room was exactly, but he'd be willing to wager that a house or two could comfortably fit inside the room. Maybe they'd even get lawns. The size and general emptiness of the room meant that their voices echoed off the walls, bouncing back towards them, repeating Takahashi's question a few seconds after it had been asked. Kakashi hummed for a moment before he spoke. I'd say that's the case, yes. The last 2 times I've used it, my left eye has been uncovered. I think that's part of the activation process. Takahashi pulled out a notebook from his suit, opening up and sliding a pen out from its spirals. Mind uncovering your eye for me now? I'd like to get a good look at it. Kakashi complied, pulling the headband off of his face again. A mask covered his lower face now, a convenient addition he'd managed to acquire when he'd passed by a box of disposable face masks sitting out on someone's desk. He felt more comfortable with the mask on, but there was still something about the way Takahashi leaned down to inspect Kakashi's eye that felt invasive to him. And your eye wasn't like this before your quirk manifested? If you mean black and red with cracks all around it, Kakashi deadpanned. Then no, I can't say it was. And the scar? Takahashi poked the scar, bisecting his eye with the end of his pen. Was that there before, or is that also a new addition? That's new too. Kakashi responded, figuring that it would be way too hard to explain the technicalities of his current situation. Yes, the scar's been here since I was 9. Yes, I'm 4 years old. No, I won't explain. Too difficult. He'll just have to pretend like he has no idea what's going on. The HPSC can write off the summons recognizing him as a weird coincidence or something. They'll come up with something to explain it, surely. Takahashi scribbled down several notes onto his notepad before he stood up straight again. Okay, summon him for me. Kakashi bit his lip. Would you mind if I tried to summon someone else this time? Takahashi's eyebrow raised. You can summon others? Kakashi shrugged. I don't know, but I'd like to try. Have at it, kiddo. Kakashi nodded and took a deep breath. He'd summoned Obito hours ago, and had since had time to recover from the backlash, but he was still worried about the exhaustion. Summoning 2 people in one day might push his limits too far. But he was curious to know if Obito was the only person he could summon or not. On the exhale, he pushed his nerves out along with the air from his lungs. Who should he call upon? Given the prerequisite of his quirk being Edo Tensei, the people he could summon probably had to be dead, but that still left him with a long list. Minato? Father? Kushina? His mind continued to spit names at him as he inhaled once again. Sandaime-sama, Asuma, Itachi. He settled on the person he wanted to see most, and on the exhale, he let their name fall from his lips. Minato Namikaze. A tugging sensation pulled at his gut, leaving Kakashi feeling like he'd activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, and the space in front of him twisted. He blinked, and Minato-sensei was standing right in front of him. Holy sages. It worked. Minato-sensei was here. And just like Obito, he immediately pulled out a knife. It's Kakashi, Kakashi said quickly. He didn't say Minato's name, that wouldn't have done anything, but Minato's student's name, Kakashi's name, that was enough to make the man pause. Minato stared down at Kakashi in confusion. His blue eyes searched Kakashi's form, recognizing him yet unbelieving of what he was seeing. I don't understand, Minato whispered, stepping close to Kakashi. He felt several pulses of chakra. The man must have been trying to dispel any genjutsu. It's not genjutsu, Kakashi told him. It's a lot to explain, but I just wanted to see. I wanted to see if I could see you again. Minato's eyes were black, his blue irises popping against the slate void, the glare in his gaze softening into something akin to love. He knelt down to Kakashi's height, and laid a hand on Kakashi's head. Kakashi-kun, he whispered, a smile splitting his face. It's been a while, he muttered. I've missed you. Not as much as I've missed you, Minato chuckled. What's happening? What happened to your eye and your body? Kakashi shook his head and flashed a hand sign. We're being watched. Minato stiffened, eyes glancing to either side, finding their target in Takahashi's presence, the man watching there. Exchange closely, jotting down notes onto his notepad. Minato returned the sign for understood, and then stood to attention, the gentle affection leaving his posture, replaced with the presence of a man that was once Hokage. There's something I need you to try for me, Kakashi said. This was potentially a very bad idea, but he was here to experiment. What? I need you to use jutsu. He gestured to the vast training room. Do anything, I just need to see if you can. Minato raised an eyebrow and signed, Are you being forced? Negative. Minato put his hands together into a few hand signs that Kakashi recognized. A simple wind jutsu. Well, even simple jutsus were never simple when they were in Minato's hands. Minato pushed his hands forward and a gust of wind blasted from them, the force so powerful that it nearly knocked Kakashi off of his feet, even though the blast hadn't been facing him. Nearby, Kakashi actually did get swept up by the air current, his notebook going flying, leaving him flailing, trying to regain his footing despite having been blasted several inches off the ground. Catch him, Kakashi muttered, and Minato rushed forward in an instant, hands wrapping around Takahashi's torso, catching him before he could hit the concrete. Minato put Takahashi back on his feet, smiling widely, Looks like you fell for me. He winked at the agent, whose face instantly went bright red. Kakashi face-bombed. Minato laughed, the lightness of his tone reminding Kakashi of days spent training alongside the man, of dinners spent with him and Kushina, of playing games and training Kakashi's Ninken together. Sorry, I'm actually married. Minato straightened Takahashi's suit, patting his shoulders once he was done. I just saw the opportunity for the joke and had to take it. Hope you don't mind. Takahashi gulped, face still tomato red. It's fine, thank you for catching me. No problem, Minato grinned, and then turned back to Kakashi. How was that? That was good, thank you. He replied. I'm going to have to let you go now, but Obito remembered being summoned, so I'm sure you will too. Minato smiled, hands signing, explain later. Sure thing. See you. Kakashi focused his gaze on Minato and felt the familiar tug again. Goodbye, Minato-sensei. He said, and Minato vanished in a whirlwind. Exhaustion washed over Kakashi like a tidal wave, and before he could steady himself, his vision blacked out and he hit the ground. He woke up 8 hours later with a raging headache and the strong urge to go back to sleep. He would have actually done it too, if it weren't for the voices speaking around him. It seems that his quirk takes quite the toll on his stamina. He'll have to build up a lot of resistance for it to be of any use. But once he does, I'm sure that he'll be powerful. Maybe even stronger than Hawks. The man that he summoned created a wind blast strong enough to knock me off my feet, even when it wasn't directed at me, and managed to cross the space between us to catch me before I could even hit the ground. A wind quirk that's been applied in order to create super speed is my theory. Fascinating. And you think the people he summons each have different abilities? He's only summoned 2 people so far, and today's summon, Minato Namikaze, he called him, was the first to show a quirk. But assuming the other, Obito, has a quirk of his own, then yes. We're going to have to test how many people he can summon. We have to wait until he gets stronger. We can't have him blacking out every time we try to test him. You think we need to start him on some physical training? Yes. Put him with Hawks, will you? He'll keep our little hound here on his toes. Will do, Director. Anything else? Find out where the people come from. If they're alive, if they're dead, if they never existed at all. I'm concerned about how he seems to know them and vice versa. Understood. The woman said something else, but Kakashi's ears failed to register the words as he slipped back into unconsciousness. Kakashi's schedule was grueling. The commission had decided that it was best to have Kakashi build up stamina, and that meant a lot of working out, apparently. He started his day with a workout, followed by a small breakfast, study time, another workout, break, lunch, study time, a quirk training session, break, and then dinner. After dinner, he was expected to either socialize or study more. Typically, he chose to study. Hawks didn't always let that happen. Like today. So I heard you've got like an army of people you can summon. Hawks leaned into his space. Is that true? Where do they come from? Kakashi waved a hand through the air. I can only summon one at a time. It's not a stamina thing, I just can't summon more than one at a time. I've tried. Sure, I have a lot of people I can summon, but not all of them are cooperative, Sasuke. And some of them just aren't worth the backlash summoning them has on me at the moment. Naruto. Hawks waited with bated breath, biting his lip in anticipation at what Kakashi would say next. As far as where they come from, it seems they come from the afterlife. However, a lot of them don't seem to remember dying, so I'm not sure about them. Kakashi explained. He'd come to the conclusion that he could summon anyone he'd known personally in his past life, regardless or whether they were dead or alive at the time that Kakashi had died. He'd been able to summon Obito, Minato-sensei, Rin, Tenzo, Itachi, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Guy so far. All of the above had been interesting reunions. There was still one more person he wanted to try to summon, but he hadn't quite worked up the courage for that one yet. As far as people he couldn't summon, it seemed anyone he hadn't known well was off limits. Hashirama and Tobirama Senju were no's, several of Naruto's friends were no's, and he figured that Naruto or Sasuke kids would draw blanks too, but he hadn't worked up the courage to try those out either. Don't get him wrong, he loves those kids. But for the love of God, unless he's in desperate need of Boruto Uzumaki specifically, he'd like to keep that child in his own dimension. So what can they all do? And how do you know their names if they're dead? Hawks says. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Hawks could be serious and was serious more often than not, but it seemed that the second they'd been left to their own devices, Hawks came out of his shell in order to interrogate Kakashi about his quirk. They can all do lots of things, he responded. As far as how I know them, when I summon them, it's like I get these memories of them, as if I knew them before. I didn't obviously, but it's like I did. Hawk's mouth dropped into a "oh, so cool." Kakashi hummed his agreement. They're fun to talk to, some of them. But some of them are grumpy. Like Obito just insults me the entire time he's here, and Sasuke just crosses his arms and chens at me until I put him back. Hawks snorted. So you can't control them? Kakashi shook his head. Not at all. If I want them to do anything for me, I have to convince them. Not easy, especially when half the time they're too busy commenting on how cute and huggable I am. Hawks roared with laughter. Kakashi smacked him. Not funny. Hawks held his arm where Kakashi had hit him. You know, you hit hard for someone so cute and huggable. Kakashi groaned. That's it. I'm leaving. I'm going to go study. No, Hawks whined, hands grabbing at Kakashi's wrists, feathers detaching in order to form a big X in front of the door. Come on, Kakashi-kun. You know there's not any other kids around for me to play with. I get bored. Kakashi sighed. The commission had been truthful about most of the things they'd told his parents during their sales pitch, but there being other kids around wasn't one of them. As far as he could tell, Hawks and Kakashi were the only trainees the commission currently had around, though he had heard rumors of an older girl who'd graduated the program a few years back. Luckily, Kakashi saw Hawks on the regular, although the boy was 7 years older than him and had a vastly different personality from Kakashi outside of training, so they didn't always get along. Fine, just don't be so annoying. He sat back down. Are we going to watch that movie you claimed we were going to? Or was that just a ruse to get me to gossip with you? Hawks huffed. You're grumpy for a 5-year-old. His feathers flew away from the door, and several of them found the TV remote, bringing it over to Hawks' hand. What do you want to watch? Kakashi shrugged. Anything. Okay, in that case, Hawks flipped through the channels a few times before picking one. This'll do. As Kakashi made himself comfortable on the couch, he noticed Hawk's feathers bring a blanket over to him and settle it over his lap. Thanks, he muttered, taking the blanket away from the feathers so he could pull it up higher over his body. No problem, Hawks returned. I always get cold during the winter here. The heating SCKS in this room. Kakashi hummed his agreement and settled down to watch the movie Hawks had put on. Kakashi sat alone in his bedroom late at night, knowing that he needed to try this, but still unsure if he was ready yet. What if it didn't work? What if it did? Which would be worse? Which would hurt more? He wiped his hands on his bedspread, hoping to dry them from the nervous sweat they'd accumulated. Why the hell was he so scared? He was a grown man for Eva's sake. Oh right. 5-year-old body. Mood swings are still a thing. He chose to blame the existential fear and dread on the 5-year-old mind. It made him feel better to think that he was so worried about this because he had no control over his emotions, rather than to admit that he was just unsure if he was ready to see him again. He wanted to see him again. He was scared that he wouldn't be able to. After so many failed summons, he was scared that he wouldn't be able to summon the one person he wanted to see so desperately. Screw it. He huffed and ripped the headband off of his head, tossing it to the side. Tsukumo Hataki, he called into the silence, and almost as if his father had been waiting for him, the man swirled into existence in front of Kakashi. Unlike the others who usually pulled a knife on Kakashi or otherwise tried to kill him, Tsukumo didn't react in any way that would suggest he was a seasoned shinobi. Instead, he turned slowly, looking around the dark room with its one light source being the candle Kakashi had lit, until his eyes fell on the room's only other occupant. He smiled softly. Kakashi. Kakashi had seen his father once since the man had died, during that brief PRD in the pain attack that he'd been dead. Kakashi had sat and talked with Tsukumo for hours beside the campfire he'd come to in the afterlife, telling his father his story. The man was the only one that knew it in its entirety, the only one Kakashi had ever spilled his whole heart out to. "To-san," he murmured, heart fluttering at the notion that Tsukumo hadn't even questioned why he was here or why Kakashi looked so different. He'd just known that the boy sitting in front of him was his son. Tsukumo sat down on the bed next to Kakashi, reaching up to run a hand along Kakashi's hair. "I'll admit, this is not where I expected to see you next." Kakashi sunk into the warmth of his father's hand. "It's a long story." "You said that last time," Tsukumo reminded. "Don't worry, I've got time." Kakashi nodded and then found himself scooting forward until he was snuggled into Tsukumo's side. "Blame it on the DMN 5-year-old mood swings." Tsukumo held him close, just like he had more than 50 years ago, back when Kakashi was a small boy and Tsukumo was his dad, and they were happy. They were so happy back then. Before everything had turned awful. "This is a different dimension," Kakashi murmured to him. "This world is full of people that don't have chakra, but instead they have quirks. There are no shinobi here, but there's heroes. Heroes are people that make a living out of saving people with their powers. I got my quirk a little less than a year ago, and with it came all the memories. Memories of when I wasn't Takeo, but I was Kakashi. I remembered it all. I miss it all," he confessed. Tsukumo's hands ran up and down Kakashi's back, comforting him in a way no one else ever could. Kakashi sunk into that warmth, feeling so childish yet so at peace at the same time. "My quirk lets me summon people from that life. Obito, Rin, Guy, Minato-sensei, his son, others. It comes at the cost of exhausting me, but you all have your full powers and can help me out if I need it. Guy loves helping, but I think that's 'cause I make it into a competition." Tsukumo chuckled, the sound coming from deep in his chest. God, Kakashi missed that laugh so much. Tears slipped from his eyes before he could stop them. "I get to see everyone I've lost again." Kakashi balled his fists into the fabric of Tsukumo's shirt. "I love it. I really love it." "I love it too, Kashi." Tsukumo pulled Kakashi away from him so that they could look at each other. Kakashi felt vulnerable like this, but he didn't dare look away, even as Tsukumo wiped Kakashi's tears away with his thumb. "You get to start again, it seems." Kakashi nodded, not trusting his voice to speak any further. Tsukumo pulled him back into the hug. "I miss seeing you when you were this small," he commented. "You're so cute when you're little like this. The perfect son." Kakashi dug his face into Tsukumo's vest. "I missed you. I missed you so much, To-san." Tsukumo's head dipped down to bury itself into Kakashi's wild silver hair. "I missed you too, Kakashi. I'm sorry." And that was all Kakashi needed. He wrapped his arms tighter around his father and vowed to summon his father as often as he could, if only so that he could see him more. A commotion had been going around the commission for the past several hours, and Kakashi, who'd had his nose buried in a book up until now, decided to go see what it was all about. Attacked UA? DMN, that takes ball. No sheet, they really tried to attack the #1 hero school? Not to mention that All Might started working there recently. They must be insane. Oh sheet, the director's here. Do we have numbers for the casualty reports yet? The director asked, her voice stern. Yeah, here they are. One teacher with several back lacerations, another in critical condition with several broken bones, both being treated at Muzutafu General Hospital. One student broke both legs, but the report says that was due to his quirk, not the villains. Noted. Cover the press reports, make it clear that UA is not at fault for this attack. Put extra emphasis on the teachers keeping the students safe, the press'll eat that up. Yes, director. But All Might was involved too, right? He was. He beat one of the main villains, who police now have in custody. The other two got away. I see. Focus on the beating one of the strongest villains part and gloss over that other part. We don't want anyone thinking that these villains are stronger than the symbol of peace. Yes, director. Anything else? Yeah. Where the hell is Hound? Kakashi watched the news reports closely. Ma, there was a villain attack for sure. The director sighed. Yes, Hound, we're aware of that already. She pushed the tablet with the file on it closer to him. You're a natural at tactics, tell me what the strategy here was. Kakashi leaned forward to read more closely, hair flopping down into his face. Well, without security footage, I can't be sure. All of this could be exaggerated by the media, but from what I can tell, the break-in at UA that happened yesterday was a precursor to this. The villains were getting information. The USJ is a remote facility, therefore perfect for attacking, and they used this information to quickly make a plan of attack. They gathered dozens of villains with the intention of overpowering the students and teachers with sheer numbers, though seeing as that didn't work, I'd imagine that either the students were particularly powerful, or those villains were particularly weak. He glanced back up at the news report playing on the television. He reached for the remote and paused the footage, the frame stopping on an image of one of the teachers being rushed into the back of an ambulance. That's the homeroom teacher? Yes. Underground hero Eraserhead. His real name is Aizawa Shoyuda, the director filled in. Kakashi hummed. Underground, huh? Underground heroes were known for staying out of the spotlight, working not for the fame and glory that came with hero work, but for the sole payoff of saving lives. He respected underground heroes more than he respected daylight heroes, but there was one downside to being an underground hero. Do we know how many villains he tried to fight at once? The director's brows furrowed in confusion. Eyewitness reports from the students should be in the later part of the files. Kakashi hummed and scrolled down a few pages, eventually finding the information he was looking for. The report detailed that Eraserhead had told his students to stay back and get out of the facility, and then had gone to engage the villains in the central plaza of the USJ, which had contained roughly 30 to 40 villains at the time. 30 villains on his own. For any hero, that's a lot. No wonder he got beaten so badly. No underground hero should try to fight that many villains alone. The director turned and grabbed a paper report, sliding it across the desk towards him. Kakashi picked it up and read over it, eyebrows rising in surprise the more he did. Impressive, he said. According to the official police report, Eraserhead had actually managed to fend off all the villains in the plaza until he'd been targeted by the villain that even All Might had struggled to beat, which was what had led to his near-fatal injuries. 2 broken arms, a fractured orbital floor, and a mild concussion. Additionally, a large section of the skin and muscle along one of his arms had been stripped down to the bone by an unidentified quirk. Eraserhead's good, he commented. Not many pros could take on that many villains alone. He might have even won the fight if not for bioengineered villain. He returned to the tablet in his hands, continuing to read on, a puzzle forming in his mind. After a few minutes, he set down the device. Could I have information on the break-in at UA the day prior? The director nodded and picked up the phone on her desk, sending out a request for the information Kakashi had requested. As they waited, Kakashi decided to fill her in on the information he'd gathered already. The villains were supposedly after All Might. He scrolled to the report he was referencing. This student says that when the villains arrived, they claimed that they were there to end the symbol of peace. My issue is that no villain would try that unless they thought they could actually pull it off. This wasn't a randomized attack. They'd likely been planning and preparing for months for this. Sure, it failed, but that was due to people like Eraserhead being way better at their jobs than they seemed to be on paper. They separated the students and attacked them in small groups, intending to pick them off, but they didn't account for the students being stronger than the villains they'd gathered. Kakashi scoffed. That's their fault though. You should expect UA trainees to be strong. The attack failed due to the factors they hadn't accounted for, such as Eraserhead, the director concluded. Kakashi hummed. Mostly. But looking at the class list, he held up one of the papers. Endeavor's son, Yaoyorozu Zairio's daughter, that kid from the slime villain attack a year ago, none of these kids are anything to scoff at. They probably didn't think they'd have to deal with a kid capable of turning the facility into an ice rink if he felt so inclined to. The director considered it, her head tilting to the side. Fair enough, I also wouldn't think to expect that. Kakashi shrugged. That's the first issue. If you don't take the time to consider all the variables, then you'll undoubtedly be surprised by at least one of them. A knock at the door. The director straightened. Come in. An intern walked in with a file folder. You asked for reports on UA's security breach? Yes, hand them to Hound. The intern nodded and passed the folder over to Kakashi. He took it with a nod and opened it up, settling fully in his seat in order to read over the report. The intern bowed and left the room. Kakashi hummed and passed the report over to the director. Hear what seems off about this? She frowned and read the page over. The attack had been brushed aside as a media break-in due to the media being so excited about All Might teaching at UA, but now we know that wasn't the case. Yep, they used the media as a convenient cover. But keep reading. She bit her lip as she kept reading, mumbling out, I'm your superior, I don't see why you won't just tell me what it is that you think is off. Kakashi smiled at her. Well, I'm paranoid about everything, so it's best if someone else thinks this is weird and not just me. I don't see anything weird. The director set the file down on the desk. No. Kakashi asked. If the villains were getting information about the class schedules or All Might's schedule specifically, then they'd have to go here. He reached forward and took the file from her hands, flipping to the page with the map on it, then pointing specifically to where the file room was marked. He traced his finger along the paper until he reached the break-in point. The director sighed in a breath and looked up at him. That's halfway across campus. UA cleared out the media in 10 minutes. That's not nearly enough time to cross campus, find the information they needed, and get out undetected. Kakashi's eyes crinkled up. Exactly. While it's reasonable that they could have used that warp quirk one of the villains had at the USJ to speed up the process, they'd still have to go through every file in the room to find the ones they wanted. Knowing UA, there's a lot of files. That would take ages. The director stood from her desk chair and began to pace around the room. So, what does that mean? Kakashi leaned back in his seat and crossed his arms. The easiest explanation I can think of? They had an informant. Someone on the inside that knew where the file they were looking for was, or something to that effect. The director continued pacing, wringing her hands together. A traitor at UA? Kakashi shrugged. It's just a thought. No, you have a point. The director stopped her pacing in order to turn and level a serious look at Kakashi. You've proven time and time again that your intellect isn't to be scoffed at. If you think that there's a traitor at UA, then I trust you. Kakashi raised a brow. He'd known for years now that he was the director's favorite, aside from Hawks, perhaps, but the XPLCT show of trust she was giving him wasn't something he was sure he'd earned. He fished for his next words, feeling as though he needed more proof as to there being a traitor. He didn't have anything. He was banking on a whim that could have been explained by countless other things. He was placing doubt in Japan's top hero institution on potentially baseless accusations, but it felt right. Something in his gut churned like the sea in a storm. He knew he was right. I can't guarantee that there's a traitor, he said, despite that feeling. But if there was, I'd wager they're a first year. The director tilted her head to the side in obvious confusion. What makes you say that? Kakashi's eyes tracked along the strip of sunlight that had illuminated the floor of the office in a bright white patch. If the traitor wasn't one of the first years, then why would they have only just now attacked? The director resumed pacing, her shadow occasionally blocking the light from shining on the floor. Kakashi explained his thought process further. When you put a spy with the enemy, there's always the risk of them turning on you. They might see that the side they're spying on is better, and if that happens, they turn. So, in order to make the most use of them, you want to use them as soon as possible. Not to mention that we haven't heard of the League of Villains before today. If the traitor was in one of the later years or was a teacher, they would have made a move by now. That means they can only be a first year. Probably in the hero course too, but that's not guaranteed. The director reached for a notebook on her desk and picked up a pen, starting to write down various notes. If there is a traitor in UA, then we need to flush them out. We can't have UA being compromised. That school is the cornerstone of hero society. Kakashi agreed with that sentiment. You could inform UA of our suspicions. UA's principal has an intellect quirk, so he'd be able to find a traitor quickly if he were looking. The director shook her head, expression tense. We can't trust UA, not right now. There's no guarantee that even Nedzu, with all of his intellect, could find a traitor if they're one of the students. He's just not around the students enough to get close to them. Kakashi's eyes tracked back to the patch of light. So what do you want to do instead? It's not like we can just start investigating UA ourselves. The director's eyes lit up. Hound, you never fail to impress me. Kakashi looked up in confusion. What? I just told you that we're out of options. We're not. Say, how do you feel about becoming our counter-spy? The HPSC is doing what? Present Mike asked Nedzu incredulously. Nedzu's smile was tense. The HPSC is concerned about the recent attack at the USJ and are choosing to intervene. A student of theirs will be transferring into Class 1A in order to watch for a potential traitor in the school. What in tarnation makes them think there's a traitor? We know that the villains broke in and used the media as a cover, Snipes said, fingers tapping on the table. Nedzu nodded. Yes, but the PRD between when the gates were broken into and when we cleared the media out was only about 10 minutes. The HPSC claims that wasn't enough time for the villains to have found our file room, located the correct file, and gotten out without being noticed. They believe that the villains must have had inside help. Present Mike fished for a comeback to that. They had a friend with a warp quirk. It would have been easy for them to get in and out, which would have left the full time to finding the files. Perhaps, Nedzu's tense smile had yet to fall. But the HPSC insists. All right, so say we let them intervene. All Mike began. What are we going to tell the students? A 21st student joining them out of nowhere is going to look suspicious, especially right after an attack. Don't misunderstand All Might, Nedzu said. I'm afraid we don't have a say in this. The HPSC is intervening regardless of how we feel about the situation. Silence fell over the room of teachers. Aizawa, body wrapped in bandages, spoke up. How old is the person they're transferring? I doubt they'll be able to pull off putting anyone older than 18 into the class, seeing as they're all first years. An adult would be too noticeable, regardless of how baby-faced they are. Nedzu opened the file in front of him. The file says that his name is Hatake Kakashi and that he is 15 years old. They're sending in a teenager? Midnight asked, alarmed and doubtful. It seems so, Nedzu said, and then kept reading. His quirk is called Edo Tensei and the HPSC claims that he will be very good at his job. Edo Tensei? Vlad King echoed. What's that even supposed to mean? I'm not sure, Nedzu said. There have been some scattered instances of him working in the field and behind the scenes with other pro-heroes, though all descriptions of his quirk and skill sets were vague. Okay, well, what's his cover story? All Might asked. It doesn't matter how good he is at acting, he's gonna have to have one hell of a story to keep people from wondering why he's here. His cover story is that, due to the media backlash UA has received as a result of our apparent carelessness for the safety of our students, the HPSC has decided to send one of their students to UA for training in order to show that the HPSC trusts and supports this nation's best hero institution. Hatake-kun is essentially going to be used as a political olive branch to the public. The teachers fell into silence. That's not bad, Aizawa grunted. But I want to meet him first before I let him into my classroom. No disguises, no cover stories, just him. I'll arrange for it, Nedzu said happily. But what will you do if you don't like what you find, Aizawa-san? As I said, we don't have much of a choice here. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it. Kakashi stepped into the office on one of UA's higher floors and found the 3 men waiting for him in the room. UA's principal, Nedzu, the teacher whose class Kakashi would be joining, Eraserhead, as well as Present Mike. "Hello," he greeted cheerily as he closed the door behind him. "I wasn't aware there'd be so many of you. I would have brought snacks." He made his way to the seat that was so clearly his, placed directly in front of the 3 of them. "Cut the sheet," Aizawa immediately said. "I'm not here to talk to your cover, I want to talk to you." Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the man as he sat down. "I assume you mean you want me to take this seriously?" He leveled a look at Aizawa. "I can do that, but for the record, there wasn't any acting going on there. You asked for me, no cover, no lies, and that's what you're getting." "Fine," Aizawa grunted. His body was bound in casts and bandages, but that didn't take away from his ability to glare at Kakashi. "How do you plan on finding a traitor amongst my students, if there even is one?" Kakashi hummed. "First, I'd profile and get to know all the students in your class. I'd look for inconsistent stories or students with motivations that might lead to them working with villains. Perhaps for familial reasons or financial compensation. After that, I'd narrow down my suspects until I had a small list of potential traitors. From there, it would be a matter of watching and waiting until the traitor slips up. And if they don't? Then I'd have to find a way to force their hand," Kakashi said, "but I don't think I'll have to go so far as to do that." "What if you don't find anything? What if my class is exactly what it should be, a group of aspiring heroes?" Aizawa asked next. "Then I will humbly apologize for wasting your time." Aizawa tooted. "Hataki-san, you're clearly very intelligent," Nedzu spoke up. "I can see why the HPSC has decided to assign you to this task. However, I still believe that UA's staff and myself are fully capable of looking for a potential traitor without the HPSC's intervention." But I have something you don't have." Kakashi leaned back in his chair and relaxed. "And what's that?" Present Mike asked. "A winning personality," Kakashi joked with a wink. The 3 heroes didn't look impressed. "Kidding," Kakashi said. "What I have is youth." And now he sounded like Guy. "Great. You 3 are older, you're authority figures. You're not someone your students will feel they can relax around, someone they'd feel they could be friends with. If one of them is a traitor, they're more likely to slip up around someone they don't feel is watching their every move." The teachers considered that. Nedzu nodded like he'd been expecting that answer, while Present Mike continued to look upset. Aizawa's reaction was indiscernible due to the bandages covering his face. Kakashi waited for their answer, patient. He knew that the HPSC had leveraged for his enrollment into Class 1A against the wishes of the UA staff, but he was hoping that the staff would at least come to trust him. "Okay," Aizawa said after a long moment of silence. "I'll let you into my class. I'll let you look for a traitor. But don't forget," Aizawa leaned forward to glare at Kakashi. "I will be watching your every move." Kakashi chuckled. "You don't trust me, Aizawa-san?" "Not particularly." "That's a shame. Probably smart though." He tapped his finger to the side of his head as he spoke. "The man who sleeps with a knife under his pillow is a fool every night but one no?" Aizawa grunted. "So what's your code name going to be?" Present Mike spoke up. Kakashi tilted his head to the side. "This is my code name." Due to the way Edo Tensei worked, it was unreasonable for him to summon all of his summons individually and inform them of his new code name. They were already used to calling him Hound or Kakashi. It was easier not to change things up on them. Present Mike didn't look comforted by his answer. "Alright, so what's your real name?" Kakashi shook his head. "Not relevant. We need to be able to trust you," Aizawa reasoned. "If we don't even know your real name, then how can we trust you?" Kakashi smiled, his one visible eye crinkling up. "I haven't used my real name since I was 4. It's better that you just call me Kakashi." "What does the HPSC call you then?" Kakashi knew they weren't going to like this answer. "They call me Hound." "They call you Hound?" Present Mike echoed incredulously. "What kind of a name is that?" Kakashi didn't bother responding. It was his hero name, technically speaking. Just like the number 3 hero in Japan was Hawks, and had been since Kakashi had met him 11 years ago, Kakashi's name was resolutely hound to both the public and the commission. Present Mike sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose, clearly having realized that Kakashi wasn't going to keep entertaining their issues with his name. Okay, so can we at least know what your quirk does? Sure, Kakashi said, and then reached up to uncover his eye. By uncovering my eye and saying a name, I can summon the person who the name belongs to. Each person I summon typically has their own unique set of skills, but I have no control over them. For example, if one of them decides to be stubborn, I can try to convince them to do what I want, but there's no guarantee it will work. Most of them are agreeable, though. Nedzu stood from his seat and approached Kakashi, walking across the desk to reach him. Might I look at your eye? Kakashi shrugged. Sure. He leaned forward so that Nedzu could get a good look at the black scara, red Sharingan, scar, and numerous cracks that made up the eye his quirk resided in. Nedzu studied it for a long moment before nodding, content. He leaned back and returned to his seat, smiling amicably. I look forward to seeing your quirk in action. That felt ominous. Kakashi reached up and lowered the headband back over his eye. I'm sure you'll find it entertaining. I've been told it's quite the quirk. He stood from his chair. So, are we done here? The three adults looked at each other before nodding. We are. You'll start school on Monday. Kakashi's eyes crinkled up into his trademark smile. I look forward to it. Kakashi frowned down at his tie. Did he really have to wear this thing? It was a choking hazard waiting to happen. Not to mention the fact that this uniform did not have nearly enough pockets. Where was he supposed to hide his knives? He'd have to buy a sewing kit and fix that. How troublesome. Kakashi studied his reflection in the mirror. Yue's uniform was a medium gray color with dark teal accents and breathes of the same color. His tie was bright red and probably minutes away from getting thrown in the trash can. The only good thing about the outfit, in Kakashi's mind, was that it conveniently matched his hair and eyes. Not that you could see the red one, though. He reached up and straightened his headband so that it covered the cracks on his skin that had begun to peek out from under the fabric. He took a deep breath, rolled his shoulders out, and gave his reflection a thumbs up. First day of school. Time to get to work, he muttered to himself. He turned around, grabbed his backpack off the bed of the apartment he was staying in for his cover, and headed out the door. Aizawa looked Kakashi up and down from behind his bandages. You look like you're trying to fight your wardrobe. Kakashi grimaced and pulled at his tie. I'm fine, just not a fan of thinly veiled choking hazards. Well, either take it off or don't, but make your decision before you walk in. Aizawa turned toward the door of the small lounge they'd met up in, obviously heading towards his classroom for homeroom. Kakashi took that as approval to take off his tie, and immediately did so, pulling it off and throwing it into the nearest trash can with glee. Aizawa didn't comment on his display, but he imagined the man was judging him. Time to go. Aizawa grunted once Kakashi was done and bent over in an odd angle in order to reach the door handle despite his double arm casts. Let me, Kakashi said quickly. Just because Aizawa had had a week to heal from his injuries along with the power of one of the world's strongest healing quirks to speed his recovery along, Kakashi didn't feel like he should make the man open doors when his arms were still bound in casts. He held the door open for Aizawa, who glared at him. I can open doors myself. Kakashi shrugged. Or you could let me open them. Aizawa huffed and walked out. Let's go. Class is about to start and I don't want to waste more time introducing you than necessary. The students are supposed to be training for the sports festival. That's next week, right? Kakashi asked, following Aizawa down the hall. I've seen some footage from it every once in a while. Seems flashy. It is, Aizawa responded. One of the few tournaments in the world where it's completely legal to fight with quirks. People eat it up, especially when the competitors are future heroes. But doesn't it put them at a disadvantage? Kakashi questioned, scratching his head. Their quirks, moves, and weaknesses are broadcasted for everyone to see. Villains would take advantage of that, right? They do all the time. But heroes are naturally in the spotlight, all of that gets put on display anyways. You could argue that UA simply prepares our students for that eventuality. Villains start recognizing UA alumni in their second or third years, in which they are still under the supervision of a pro-hero that can keep them safe if it's too much for them to handle. They get used to villains knowing their moves, and they learn to adapt early on. If you ask me, thinks ahead. Huh, Kakashi responded. That was a lot of talking for a guy with a broken facial bone, but Kakashi supposed he had a point. It was like when genin were sent on high-ranking missions alongside a powerful jounin. It gave them a taste of how bad things could get, but they weren't alone, so it was safer. He'd done that several times with his team, both as a student and as a teacher. They reached the door marked with a massive 1A on it, and while that was an unreasonably large door, Kakashi's gaze traveled up towards the ceiling, several meters above his head, which was around where the door stopped. Why was the door so tall? For drama? Stay out here until I call you in, Aizawa grunted, and then opened the door. Kakashi heard the distinct sound of people rushing to their seats, chairs screeching on the floor, and then silence. That was fast. Aizawa must have trained them to do that. Good morning, Aizawa muttered. Kakashi peeked in through the window on the door to watch the class. Good morning, Mr. Aizawa, they all chanted. As you may know, due to the recent attack on the USJ, UA has been experiencing some media backlash. In order to quell this, the Hero Public Safety Commission has decided to show their trust and support in UA. A few hushed whispers met that statement. As a result, they've decided to send one of their own students to learn under UA in a public show of faith. Simply put, a new student is transferring into this class. Not so hushed whispers met that statement. Sir, what do you mean? A new student 2 weeks into the school year? That's crazy, you can't just transfer into UA. This is the top hero school in the country, you have to earn. Quiet down, Aizawa's voice cut into the clamor. Class, meet your new classmate, Hatake Kakashi. Kakashi opened the door up and stepped inside, and all eyes turned on him. He waved joyfully. Hello. They didn't seem to take to his presence like he'd been hoping they would. He scanned the room as he approached Aizawa at the front. 20 hero students, all his age, each with different quirks and motivations. Immediately he recognized the son of the number 2 hero sitting at the back of the classroom, Todoroki Shoto. His report on the USJ had been the most detailed of all of the students that had been interviewed. He also picked out a few others, Yaoyorozu Momo, Bakugo Katsuki, and Ida Tenya. Feel free to introduce yourself, Aizawa told him. Of course. Kakashi raised a peace sign. My name is Kakashi, and I was taken in by the commission when I was 4 years old, but I guess I was such an annoyance that they didn't want me around anymore, so here I am. Someone snickered. Everyone else remained stone-faced, too busy processing what was happening. Tough crowd. He was hoping to get them to warm up to him near immediately with a few jokes, but clearly that wasn't working out. He needed to try a bit harder. Aizawa grunted and Kakashi turned to look at him. The man clearly wanted Kakashi to go to his seat, but Kakashi wasn't quite ready for that. First impressions were key. Yes. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Unless you have any questions, you're free to go sit down now. Oh, Kakashi hummed and raised a hand to his chin contemplatively. Actually, I do have a question for you, if you wouldn't mind. Aizawa gave him a blank look, and Kakashi knew that his following question would piss the man off to no end. But Aizawa already didn't like him, so right now his main goal was to get the class to like him. What is it? Kakashi leaned forward. He waited a moment for comedic timing, the tense silence filling the room as the students waited in anticipation of what Kakashi was going to ask. Do you know the Muffin Man? If it weren't for the fact that Aizawa's arms were bound by casts, Kakashi was sure the man would have slapped him for that. A blonde kid in the middle of the room started laughing, and soon everyone else did. Aizawa glared at him, eyes beginning to tinge with red and his hair starting to float, but he remained silent, too stunned to speak. Mission success. I'm gonna take that as a no. Kakashi gave Aizawa some finger guns because he couldn't wink with one of his eyes covered and made his way to his seat at the back of the classroom. On his way, the blonde kid that had laughed first patted Kakashi on the back, wheezing out, "Good joke, dude." Kakashi gave him a thumbs up as he continued to cross the room, his seat having been placed at the back of the farthest row. Smoothly, he slid into his seat and set his backpack down next to him. He reached inside and pulled out a notebook and pen as Aizawa recovered from the mental trauma Kakashi had just put him through and began to speak. As you all know, the sports festival is next week. I hope you've all been training hard, as I suspect this year will be quite interesting. A hand went up. Yes, Ida? What do you mean by that? You all were attacked by villains and survived. That doesn't come without repercussions. The eyes of the world will be on the 20 of you. Chances are, the turnout for the first year's group will be higher than usual. Additionally, Hataki is a student of the Hero Public Safety Commission and has been training under them for quite some time. Seeing as the number 3 hero, Hawks, did the same, I imagine that will also draw some interest. In other words, you all have a lot of expectations to live up to. If anxiety was a palpable feeling, Kakashi figured this was what it felt like. The students around them shifted in their seats and one girl looked like she would have preferred to curl up and die on the floor than be subject to having the attention of thousands of people on her. Kakashi could honestly relate. Today we'll be taking a break from our independent training in order to break Hataki in, but tomorrow we'll be returning to it. Break him in? What did that mean? The eyes of his classmates turned slowly to him, and Kakashi could swear that some of them looked absolutely sadistic while others looked extremely sympathetic. Oh no. Kakashi soon found that by break Hataki in, Aizawa meant that he needed to run through a quirk assessment test. Kakashi didn't see what was so bad about that, he just had to do a little physical exercise. Kakashi didn't summon anyone for the tests, after all, that seemed like cheating. Like sure, he could call Minato to do the 50-meter dash for him, but then it wouldn't be Kakashi running the tests, and therefore wouldn't be a gauge of his abilities. Definitely cheating. Aizawa didn't seem to agree with him. No. Hataki, he snapped and Kakashi paused right as he'd been about to throw the ball for the ball throw test. Yes. You do realize this is a quirk assessment test, right? You're supposed to use your quirk. Kakashi noticed his classmates, who were standing nearby, having watched each of Kakashi's tests with rapt attention, perk up in interest, thinking that maybe they'd finally get to see Kakashi use his quirk. Well yes, Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. But aren't these tests supposed to assess my physical capabilities? This test is meant to assess what you can do while being assisted by your quirk. Aizawa corrected. I won't dock you on points based on the technicalities of how your quirk works. Kakashi hummed. I see. Well in that case, I suppose I'll use my quirk for the remaining tests. His classmates tensed. Someone leaned forward so much that Kakashi was convinced they'd fall on their face if they leaned any further. He reached for his headband and pulled it up, revealing his Edo Tensei. Someone gasped. Kakashi briefly considered who would be best for this, before he realized that was a stupid thing to wonder about. Mato Guy, he called, and the air swirled in front of him as his quirk activated. Kakashi blinked once to clear the blurriness from his eyes, and looked up to see Guy standing before him in all of his glory. Kakashi! The man exclaimed upon seeing that he'd been summoned. That was the thing about Guy. Of all of the people Kakashi could summon, Guy was the most ecstatic about getting summoned. Kakashi was fairly certain the man was just bored and this was the most entertainment he'd gotten in ages. Hey Guy, he replied, raising a hand for a high five. His friend immediately connected it, the smack hitting so hard that it burned Kakashi's hand. What's up, my eternal rival? Guy asked, looking around curiously. Kakashi leaned forward so he could whisper to Guy. I'm going to school again. Guy boomed with laughter. School again, you say? How youthful. Sure is, Kakashi responded. Say, I've gotta ace this quirk assessment test here. You wouldn't mind throwing this ball as far as you possibly can for me, would you? He raised the ball up towards Guy. Guy took it and examined it. That's it? You just want me to throw it? Not while the room is on fire or while I'm getting shot at. Just throw it, Kakashi confirmed, and pointed towards where he wanted Guy to aim. I'm thinking 12 kilometers, but I'll understand if you can't get it to go that far. Guy straightened. You think I can't throw a ball 12 kilometers? Don't be foolish, Kakashi. I will throw it twice that. And with that declaration, Guy reared back and launched the softball, rocketing so much power into the throw that Kakashi could see the resulting shockwave. "Ma, that was pretty good," he commented. Guy grinned proudly. "It sure was. I bet you couldn't do better, my rival." "Ma, no, you totally beat me," Kakashi conceded, lying out of his but to give Guy the impression that he'd already thrown the ball. "I only got 70 meters. Yosh." Guy pumped a fist into the air. "I once again defeat you. The score is now 57-63, my lead." Kakashi slumped. "It sure is. I'll catch up though, don't worry." Guy laughed. Behind them, the class was staring at their exchange incredulously. Kakashi heard the device in Aizawa's hand beep and figured that the ball must have finally landed. He and the rest of the class turned to see what the final score was. 30,000 meters, Aizawa grunted, holding up the score. In other words, Guy had gotten 30 kilometers, which was more than Kakashi had asked for. Guy seemed to know it too. And that is the power of eternal youth. "Ma, it sure is," Kakashi muttered. "You know, I've got another test that might be more difficult for you. Something about testing grip strength." Guy lit up. "Don't be fooled, my rival. My grip is just as strong as my spirit is young. I will break the testing device with how strong I am." "Please don't," Kakashi sighed. Guy did. By the end of the tests, Kakashi was certain that if his classmates dropped their jaws any lower, their jaw bones would simply fall off their faces. "Thank you," Kakashi said to Guy. "It was fun." "My pleasure," Guy responded, clapping Kakashi on the shoulder. "Next time, my rival, you should try harder. I clearly outclassed you today. How are you meant to stay my rival if you can't actually match me?" Kakashi waved a hand through the air. "Don't worry about that. I bet I can read more books than you by the time I summon you again." Guy lit up. "Deal. I will read hundreds of books to assure that you can't possibly win." "Goodbye, Guy," Kakashi said, and Guy disappeared back into the realm he'd come from. Speaking of said realm, Kakashi was fairly sure that it didn't have any books, so he figured that he'd only have to read one book in order to win the challenge. "Ha, stupid guy." Kakashi turned to Aizawa. "Sorry about him, he's a bit of a chatterbox, but he gets the job done when it comes to physical feats." Aizawa nodded slowly. "Yes, I can see that." Kakashi clapped his hands together. "So, are we done for the day?" "We are," Aizawa said and cleared his throat. "You all have your core classes to attend to now. Go change out of your gym uniforms and be back to class in 7 minutes." "Yes, Mr. Aizawa." After changing, Kakashi sidled up to the blonde boy who had laughed at his joke at the beginning of class. "Hey," he greeted. He'd figured that this kid was the friendliest of the people in his class, and therefore he was the one Kakashi decided to talk to first. "Hey, Hataki-kun," the boy said, raising a hand for a high five. Kakashi returned it as the boy started babbling. "Bro, your quirk is crazy cool. What is it exactly? 'Cause I thought it had something to do with your eye until that guy appeared. And he's crazy strong and fast." Kakashi hummed. "He sure is. That was Guy, he's one of the people I can summon." "Wait," the boy stopped. "You can summon multiple people?" "Sure can," Kakashi replied. "But some of them are real a-holes, so I don't call them anymore." The boy snorted. "Say," Kakashi gave him a good-natured smile. "I never got your name. Or anyone else's, for that matter." "Oh." The boy straightened. "I'm sorry, man. I'm Kaminari Denki." "Nice to meet you, Kaminari," Kakashi pointed at himself. "You can just call me Kakashi. Hataki sounds so formal." "Of course," Kaminari quickly said, jabbing an elbow towards Kakashi's side but missing by a mile. "Suits you better anyways." They strolled into the classroom for their first real lesson the day, half of the class having already arrived. "I don't suppose you could introduce me to everyone?" Kakashi asked. "Oh sure. You can count on me, dude. You'll know everyone's names by the end of the day," Kaminari said. Kakashi gave him a thumbs up and looked around at the rest of the class. It seemed he was right in assuming that Kaminari was the most friendly one of them all, which meant that Kaminari was also the perfect starting point. "So that's Aoyama Yuga," Kaminari pointed to the blonde boy that sat in the first seat. His hair had been brushed and slicked down in a way that made it look like the boy was preparing to be a runway model. He's French, so it might be hard to understand him sometimes. He's also a bit weird from what I can tell, but I don't really know him well, so I can't judge. Kaminari shrugged, and then pointed to the girl sitting behind him. Now that hottie is Ishido Mina. I daydream of getting to bury my face in her hair, like look at it. Kakashi pet his head to the side, pretending to study Ishido's hair hard, even though what he was really studying was her posture and demeanor as she spoke to the girl behind her. She was relaxed and cheerful from what Kakashi could see of her. Typical teenage girl. He hummed after his long moment of contemplation. Her hair is nice, but I think I'd be afraid of getting my eye poked out by her horns. And I can't afford that, you know. He pointed up at his one visible eye as if to insinuate that he'd be screwed if he lost it. Kaminari chuckled. For every reward, there is a risk, my dude. That's true. He glimpsed present Mike stepping into the room and noticed the time on the clock. Class was about to start. Speaking of risk, we might want to sit down, lest we risk present Mike deciding we don't need our eardrums anymore. Kaminari followed his gaze. Oh shit. He sent Kakashi a playful glance before scurrying towards his seat. Kakashi did the same, sliding into his seat right as the bell rang. Hey little listeners. Present Mike started. You kiddos ready to learn some English? Kakashi leaned back in his chair casually. Oh good, this was a class he didn't have to pay attention to. The HPSC had ingrained 5 languages other than Japanese into his head by the time he was 10, citing that it was important for him to be able to speak multiple languages. English was one of the first ones he'd learned, which meant he could tune out this class in favor of studying his new classmates. Minato, he called. The man appeared before him and looked at Kakashi quizzically. In the last decade, all of the people Kakashi regularly summoned had gotten used to Kakashi summoning them for various tasks. Most of them didn't mind, though every once in a while, he'd get an annoyed, you know I'm not your SLV, right? I've got a message, Kakashi said, holding up an envelope. Can you bring it to the HPSC for me? There's a Hiration marker in my room like usual. Minato patted Kakashi's head. Sure thing, Kashi-kun. I'll be back in a flash. Kakashi rolled his eyes at the joke, and, satisfied by Kakashi's annoyed reaction to the pun, Minato vanished. Kakashi settled down onto the couch of his apartment. In 3 days' time, he'd managed to gather a lot of information on UA, but there was one thing that he discovered that he was sure the director would want to know about. All Might had a secret. Seat number 1. Ryumayuga. Quirk. Naval laser. Application. He shoots a laser from his belly button. He seems to think this is cool. Personality. Flamboyant but introverted. He's flashy but only in spurts. Otherwise, he remains calm. He's not the best at his studies. Speaks in French a lot, but most of what he says isn't important. Motivation to be a hero. It's a dazzling profession, don't you think, mon ami? The only job where I can truly sparkle. Seat number 2. Ishido Mina. Quirk. Acid. Application. She can produce acid from her skin and has control over its properties. Personality. Cheerful and easygoing. Tends to be highly social and excitable, talks a lot to her friends in class. Not very academic, but she is fairly athletic. Motivation to be a hero. She claims that it's perfect for me, don't you think? Like, I love helping people out and I sure am good at it too. So why wouldn't I be a hero? Seat number 3. Application. She can do anything a frog can do. Climb on walls, stick her tongue out really far, etc. Personality. Straightforward, calm, collected. She's friendly but not sociable. Motivation to be a hero. I grew up with 2 younger siblings who look up to me a lot. I always took care of them when our parents were at work, and they called me their hero because of it, ribbit. I guess I want to be other people's hero too. Seat number 4. Ida Tenya. Quirk. Engine. Application. He has engines in his calves. These allow him to run about as fast as a car. He has to drink orange juice to fuel his quirk, though he did mention that technically any juice could work. Personality. Strict, uptight, straightforward. He's the class representative for 1A and treats this duty as though it's the most important thing he will ever do. Swings his arms around like he's a robot too. It's unclear if this is intentional or not. Motivation to be a hero. You may have heard of the pro-hero ingenium. He's my older brother. I aspire to be like him and follow in my family's footsteps. Seat number 5. Quirk, zero gravity. Application. By touching anything with all 5 fingers, she can cancel gravity's effects on that object and make it float. This also applies to people and herself. She can release the objects at any time. Personality, bubbly but rather laid back otherwise. She is either really oblivious or very good at pretending to be, because she has missed the several times Kaminari seat number 7 has attempted to flirt with her. Motivation to be a hero. Oh well, I'm kinda doing it for the money? You see, my family's really poor and I want to get a lot of money as a hero so that they can take it easy, you know. In his first 2 days at UA, Kakashi got a general read of most of the class, and had even gone about asking the people in seats 1 to 5 about why they were at UA, and why they wanted to be a hero. His thoughts on them so far were that the only one he could reasonably clear from suspicion was Ida Tenya, due to his story checking out. Kakashi didn't even have to do that much digging to check. He already knew about Ida 10, the Ida family agency, and knew that his brother was a popular hero. Hey, Kakashi, you with me, dude? Kakashi tuned into Kaminari, who was waving his hand in front of his face, trying to get his attention. Ma, of course I'm with you. Where else would I be? Kaminari threw his head back into a laugh. Kakashi forced himself to chuckle along with him. So, what were you saying? Oh, I know you missed lunch with us yesterday since Present Mike had to take you away to show you the rest of the school, but do you want to sit with me today? Sure, Kakashi replied. Who do you sit with? Usually I sit with Shiro and Kirishima, and sometimes Bakugo joins if he's feeling particularly sociable. Kakashi scoffed. Bakugo, sociable? I didn't know those 2 words could go together. Kaminari roared with laughter. Oh dude, you are going to fit right in here. I'd hope so, Kakashi responded. It sure would SCK if my award-winning personality couldn't get me at least a friend or 2. Kaminari and him continued to banter as they approached their lunch table, where Shiro and Kirishima were already sitting. Hey guys. Kaminari greeted. Mind if Kakashi joins us for lunch? Fine by me, Shiro replied, giving Kakashi a wave. The more the merrier. Kirishima grinned. Hey man, I'm Kirishima Ijiro. Nice to meet you, Kakashi greeted, sitting down next to Kaminari. Thanks for letting me sit with you guys. No problem, man. You seem like a really cool guy anyways. Kirishima said, and then gestured to the empty spot on the table in front of Kakashi. Do you not have a lunch? Oh, Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck. I might get food later. I don't usually take off my mask in front of people. Why not? Shiro butt in. You got buck teeth or something? Kaminari asked, only to get smacked atop the head by Kirishima, who hissed out be nice. Kakashi chuckled. Nothing like that. The 3 of them waited with bated breath for Kakashi to explain why he never took off his mask in front of people. He didn't. Okay, so, Kirishima spoke first. Well, just don't forget to eat, man. The hero course can be pretty intense. Trust me, you don't want to pass out during one of All Might's lessons, 'cause you didn't eat lunch. Noted, Kakashi smiled at him. Don't worry about little ol' me. Kaminari clapped his hands together. Well, I don't know about Kakashi, but I am starving. I'll be back, guys. I gotta go get some food. Oh, and Kakashi? You gotta try Lunch Rush's food one day. I know cafeteria food usually esigus, but I swear this sheet is to die for. Kakashi gave him a thumbs up. I'll keep it in mind. Seat number 6. Ojiro Mashireo. Quirk. Application. He has a tail. Pretty self-explanatory. Personality. Calm and rather plain. He's laid back and doesn't seem to be bothered by much, such as when Kaminari's seat number 7 randomly decides to start petting his tail during class. Motivation to be a hero. Oh, I don't know. I guess I just think it's the noble thing to do. Like, I'm talented, and it would be a waste to not use my talent to save lives. Maybe that's kind of stupid, but I just really want to know that when I die, I will have done something good with my life. Seat number 7. Kaminari Denki. Quirk, electrification. Application. He's basically a human battery. He can produce electricity from his body at will, but has no control over it once it leaves him. He's troubled by this, as he doesn't want to hurt anyone with his quirk. When he uses his quirk too much, he fries his brain. Personality: friendly, social, energetic. He's also a tease and a flirt. He's admitted that he's not very smart, but claims that he makes up for it with his attitude. Motivation to be a hero. Oh, that's easy. It's cool. I mean, like, what's cooler than being a big-name hero with lots of money and girls? I can't think of anything. Seat number 8. Kirishima Ijiro. Quirk, hardening. Application. He can harden his skin into a rock-like substance. This also gives him enhanced strength as it allows him to not get hurt while hitting things. Personality. Kirishima is boisterous and outgoing, with a fondness for the concept of manliness. His definition of what is manly has yet to be determined. Kirishima is somehow capable of smiling even as Bakugu's seat number 17 yells at him. Motivation to be a hero. Why do I want to be a hero? Well, I guess I've looked up to heroes ever since I was a kid and wanted to be one. But there's this one hero, Crimson Riot, that really inspired me. I want to be a chivalrous hero just like him. That's the manliest thing ever, I think. Seat number 9. Koda Koji. Quirk, Funivas. Application. He can speak to animals and ask them to do anything he wants. Personality: quiet, shy, reserved. Not very interested in talking, but it seems to be out of embarrassment rather than malice. Motivation to be a hero: unknown, as he was stuttering the entire time. He did sign out help and mutant types though. Seat number 10. Sato Rikido. Quirk, sugar rush. Application. By eating sugar, he can increase his strength at the cost of his intelligence. The effects wear off within an hour or so, depending on how much sugar he consumed. Personality: sweet and humble. He's friendly but not overly so. Offered me one of his mini cakes, which I declined due to not liking sweets. This was apparently the wrong thing to say to him, as he got visibly disappointed. Motivation to be a hero. It sounds fun. I really want to save people and I have a good quirk for it. So it works for me. Kakashi quickly discovered that their class PRD for heroics was being used as independent training until the sports festival, which meant that everyone took that time to train on their own in the various facilities UA provided. Azui went up to the pool, Kirishima to the weights section of the gym, and went Bakugu to Gym Gamma to train his quirk. Kakashi debated what he should do with his time. He could run one of the standard HPSC workouts, or he could not try to kill himself today and instead read a book. He did that. As he read, his mind kept drifting to his mission. Everyone in class seemed like normal, non-villainous kids, but he couldn't go off of first impressions alone. Still, he needed to start somewhere. Maybe it would be better to determine who he does trust first, and figure out who he doesn't after that. Seat number 11. Quirk, dupli arms. Application. He has 6 arms, all of which can make various other bodily features on the end of them. Eyes, ears, mouths, more arms, etc. His extra limbs give him enhanced strength, and the variability of his quirk makes it incredibly versatile. Personality: the walking definition of a gentle giant. He's kind to his classmates, but does hang out primarily with the other mutant types in the class. Motivation to be a hero: that's hard to explain. I want to make people happy. Sorry if that's a bad answer. Seat number 12. Jarikyoka. Quirk, earphone jack. Application. She has a pair of headphone jacks that protrude from her earlobes. These allow her to channel the sound of her own heartbeat through them, as well as hear quiet sounds. Personality: sarcastic and unenthusiastic. She teases people with her dry humor and is quiet otherwise. Particularly likes making fun of Kaminari's seat number 7. Motivation to be a hero: I just want to dedicate my life to others. You know how rock stars make music that makes other people feel good? I want to be like that, but in my way. Seat number 13. Shiro Hanta. Quirk. Application. His elbows are basically tape dispensers. It's unclear how the tape gets made, but he can produce seemingly endless amounts of tape. He uses this quirk to bind people or swing around like a monkey. Personality. Friendly, can be loud and showy but also more laid back when the situation calls for it. He's not afraid to make fun of people, namely Bokugu's seat number 17. Motivation to be a hero. Well, this is gonna sound kinda stupid, but there's this American hero, Spider-Man, and I just think he's really cool. And our quirks are similar. And so if he can be a hero and save people, then I can too, right? Seat number 14. Tokoyami Fumikage. Quirk, Dark Shadow. Application. He has a sentient shadow. It's unclear how independent Dark Shadow is from Tokoyami, but they were arguing over which type of apple is better at lunch, so it can be assumed that Dark Shadow has a separate mind and personality from Tokoyami. Personality, emo. He's reserved, serious, and mysterious. When he does talk, most of what he says is laced with words that make it seem like he's trying to live his life as dark poet. Motivation to be a hero. Heroism is the path of the noble, not the faint of heart. For one to surpass others' fears and misconceptions, one must first surpass thine own. Seat number 15. Todoroki Shoto. Quirk, half cold, half hot. Application. From the right side of his body, he can produce ice. From the left, he can produce fire. Personality. Quiet, angsty, and a loner. He doesn't talk to people much and is straightforward and harsh when he does. Motivation to be a hero. I want to surpass my father. Kakashi packed up his school bag, purposefully lingering behind so that he could keep watching his classmates. He'd been working on getting to know all of them, but it wasn't the easiest to talk to everyone with all of his classes taking up the majority of his time. Right now, the people in the classroom with him were Kaminari, who was waiting for Kakashi, Midoriya, Uraraka, and Ida. Kaminari was on his phone, watching TikToks with his earbuds in. He'd already shown Kakashi 2 videos since class had ended, both of which had admittedly been pretty funny. Midoriya was fiddling with his notebook as Ida and Uraraka chatted amicably about the math homework. Kakashi watched him curiously. Midoriya was a bit of a mystery to him. There was just something about the green-haired boy that rubbed him the wrong way. Perhaps it was Bakugu's obvious disdain towards him, not that Bakugu was the best measurement of who Kakashi should and shouldn't like, or perhaps it was something else. Hey guys, Midoriya spoke up. I'm gonna ask Hataki-kun some questions about his quirk. You can go on ahead without me. The two of them stopped, looked between Midoriya and Kakashi in surprise, and then nodded. See you later, Deku. Uraraka waved, and grabbed her bag to leave. Yes, we will see you tomorrow, Midoriya. Ida tacked on, following Uraraka out. Midoriya waved at them both until the door shut behind him. Hey Kakashi, look at this. Kaminari pulled out an earbud to hand it to Kakashi, who took it in order to watch the TikTok Kaminari wanted to show him. It was a dog video. Top-tier content, in Kakashi's humble opinion. Send that to me? He asked, giving Kaminari back his earbud. Sure, Kaminari said, already working on sharing it. You ready to head out soon? Yeah, but I think Midoriya wants to talk to me. He gestured to where Midoriya was anxiously watching them from across the classroom, clutching his notebook in his arms. So how about you just meet me outside? Kaminari winked at Midoriya, who blushed a bright red. Sure thing, man, don't take too long though, I've got a date with the hot 2D woman from Dead or Alive tonight. You got it, will just be a moment. Kaminari flashed a pair of finger guns at him and then turned to leave, patting Midoriya on the shoulder as he went, muttering, Don't look so scared, Mido, he's a pretty chill guy. That did nothing to calm Midoriya down, but Kakashi appreciated the effort. So what's up? Kakashi asked. Oh, well Midoriya stuttered out. I wanted to ask you about your quirk. I really only got to see it that one time during your quirk test, and well, I'm kinda confused as to how it works. I can summon a crazy guy in a green jumpsuit, Kakashi replied. Sounds pretty self-explanatory to me. Yeah, but where does he come from? Kakashi shrugged. You know, I haven't quite figured that part out yet. You don't know where they come from? Midoriya asked, opening his notebook, beginning to scribble down notes. Kakashi caught sight of a drawing of him along with several notes around him detailing theories of how his quirk might work. No clue. Some of them are dead, some of them aren't. Kakashi responded and then leaned forward. Are you writing this down? Midoriya squeaked. Well yeah, I just like taking notes on quirks. If you don't want me writing yours down, I'll take out the page. I just think quirks are really cool and yours is kinda bizarre, so it's really interesting to me. Kakashi hummed and held out a hand. Can I see? Oh, sure. Midoriya passed over the notebook and Kakashi read over his page. Most of the notes were just speculation, but there was a large section on Guy in which Midoriya had calculated how much force Guy had to put into throwing the softball in order to get it to fly as far as it did. Kakashi flipped the page and found a section on Yaoyorozu. He skimmed over that too, noting that Midoriya speculated that her quirk worked based on body mass and that she should eat a lot more if that were the case. He flipped back to the beginning of the book to read from there. Midoriya squeaked and tried to stop him, but Kakashi simply held the book up and out of Midoriya's reach. This page was about Bakugo, more specifically, his hero costume and how it worked. Kakashi had to admit, it was impressive. The next page was on Aizawa, the following about Uraraka, the next about Ida. Kakashi read over each page as Midoriya babbled about some of the information in there being private and how he didn't want Kakashi to read it, please. Kakashi flipped to the next page and found a drawing of All Might. Now that was interesting. Most of the page was simple enough, exactly what he expected, but there was a few things that drew his attention. Mainly, the note where his quirk name had been scratched out, rewritten, and then scratched out again. There was also a circle on All Might's torso with a note that said, Injury. 3 hours. Kakashi flipped the page so that Midoriya didn't realize that Kakashi had noticed something suspicious about the page. Hataki-kun, I really don't think you should be reading that. Ma, why not? Kakashi asked. If it's so private, then why are you keeping it in a composition notebook that anyone could see? Midoriya's face went red. Kakashi flipped the page again, and found a page dedicated to Midoriya himself. The notes on this page were extensive. Paragraphs covered the page detailing potential usages for OFA, along with paragraphs dedicated to copying All Might's moves, and subsection dedicated to detailing the backlash of his quirk. That page, however, seemed to be the last straw for Midoriya. A punch slammed into Kakashi's ribs with a force that he honestly didn't expect from the other, and once Kakashi had doubled over, arm dropping to clutch at his ribs, Midoriya grabbed the notebook from his hands. Geez, who would have guessed that Midoriya could fight dirty? I'm sorry for bothering you, Hataki-kun, Midoriya's voice was clipped. But I really don't want you reading through my notebook. Have a good day. And with that, Midoriya turned away and booked it out of the classroom, leaving Kakashi alone, shocked at the aggression Midoriya had showed just now. He straightened, ribs screeching in protest. Then, how hard had Midoriya hit him? He took a shaky breath in, and determined that something definitely wasn't right with his ribs. Had Midoriya hit him hard enough to break bone? Kakashi stiffly grabbed his bag, deciding to go head to Recovery Girl's office for a quick healing. Usually, he hated hospitals, but from what he knew of Recovery Girl's quirk, this should be a 2-minute pit stop, and then he could go catch Kaminari for the walk to the train station. Seat number 16. Hagakure Tour. Quirk. Invisibility. Application. She's invisible. All the time. Personality. Bubbly, cheery, and sociable. She's friends with a lot of people in the class. Seems to get insecure about the fact that no one can see her, though. Motivation to be a hero. Oh, that's easy. I saved this kid a couple of years ago from a drunk driver, and it really inspired me. He was so thankful and it just made me really happy. That was the first time I felt like someone really saw me. Seat number 17. Bakugo Katsuki. Quirk. Explosion. Application. He sweats a nitroglycerin-like substance and can ignite it from his palms. He's learned to use this quirk in a variety of ways. Personality. Abrasive, loud, yells at everyone. Hates Midoriya. Seat number 18 in particular. When he's not yelling, he's calm and focused. Underneath all of the anger issues, he might even be smart. Motivation to be a hero. Huh? Why the hell do you care? I'm obviously the DM in best, so you can F right off, eye patch. You and your stupid Quirk don't hold a candle to me, got that? Seat number 18. Midoriya Izuku. Quirk, superpower. Application. He can generate immense amounts of strength, but at the cost of his own body, as using his quirk breaks his bones. How he got into the hero course with a quirk like that is unclear. Personality? Nervous, mumbles a lot. He's smart and loves to take notes on heroes and their quirks, and can be fairly emotional. When dealing with Bakugo seat number 18, he shifts wildly between being timid and being confident. There is likely some history there. Motivation to be a hero. Oh, well, I've always really looked up to All Might and wanted to save people, ever since I was a kid. I just really want to do good and help people. That sounds kinda silly when I say it aloud, but it's the truth. Seat number 19. Mineta Minoru. Application. He can remove the sticky ball from his head and they'll stick to anything except himself as he bounces off of them. Personality. Casual most of the time, but can be scared easily as shown by Zero seat number 13 scaring him to the point where he ripped off the ball from his quirk and threw them at Zero, who was then stuck to his desk for an hour until they wore off. Mineta has also shown tendencies to be perverted and will unabashedly comment about the bodies of the girls in his class. Motivation to be a hero. The women, dude. The women. There's nothing hot girls like more than a big shot hero. Seat number 20. Yaoyoro Zumomo. Quirk. Creation. Application. She can use the lipids from her body to create anything as long as she understands the object's molecular structure. As a result, her quirk requires her to study a lot. Personality. Prudent, dedicated, level-headed, and calm. She tends to be polite and reserved, yet she can be blunt with her comments about people's mistakes and miscalculations, as shown by when she corrected Kaminari's seat number 7 on his math homework. Motivation to be a hero. Why do I want to be a hero? Well, I guess I've just always wanted to help people with my quirk. I know that's no tragic backstory or anything, but I think that the best people are the ones who dedicate themselves to helping others. So that's what I want to do. Making his way to Recovery Girl's office was more painful than he would like to admit. He missed the days when he had chakra and could minimize the effects of pain with it. In this body, though, he was painfully susceptible to injuries. Extra emphasis on the painful part. As Kakashi approached Recovery Girl's office, he saw a blonde man in a yellow suit that was about 10 sizes too big for him leave the room, waving a goodbye to the elderly woman. "Thanks once again, Chio-san." "You're welcome, All Might." She responded. "But take it easy, you hear? With an injury like that, you just can't do all the things you used to be able to." Now, Kakashi was no expert, but he was fairly sure that Scraggly Man was not All Might. He was also pretty sure that he wasn't supposed to hear this conversation. Kakashi sidestepped until he was hidden around a corner and kept listening. "I will, and I know. Trust me, no one knows more than me that my days as the symbol of peace are coming to an end. I just hope that the legacy I leave behind will be enough to inspire our future heroes." Kakashi held his breath, the gears in his mind turning rapidly, trying to put all of the pieces together. This was All Might, this scraggly, lanky man that looked like he hadn't had a proper meal in years. He was injured. Midoriya's notebook had circled a place on his torso and detailed the injury. Midoriya knew about the injury. 3 hours. What did 3 hours mean? Kakashi was willing to bet that this was what All Might looked like when he wasn't in his form as the symbol of peace, therefore maybe he could only keep up the muscle form for 3 hours? Did the scratched-out quirks have something to do with it? Does Midoriya know what All Might's real quirk is? Kakashi waited until All Might was gone, and then waited about 2 minutes more before he moved from his hiding place. His mind continued to reel with the information he'd gathered, but there was nothing he could do about it now. He knocked on the office door and opened it slowly, peeking his head inside. Recovery Girl looked shocked to see him. "Hataki-kun, what brings you by?" He pushed the door open all the way and stepped inside. "Well, let's just say I'm rather clumsy." He chuckled and sat down on the bed. "Hurt my ribs. I was hoping you wouldn't mind healing me up so I don't have to walk all the way home feeling like there's a knife in my side." Recovery Girl tooted and approached him. You should be more careful, young man. Ma, I know. But I was reading this Rutka that was just so enticing that I forgot to watch where I was walking. Kakashi noted the woman's shoulders stiffen and considered that a win. No one questioned him whenever he brought up the pawn, too uncomfortable to do anything but get the conversation over with sooner rather than later. It seemed Recovery Girl was no exception. She kissed his cheek, and then handed a handful of gummies over to him. There you go. Get home safe, young man. He stood. Will do, thanks. And with that, he walked away to go find Kaminari, slipping down the hem of his mask to pop the gummies into his mouth as he walked. He'd have to inform the HPSC of what he'd discovered about All Might. While they didn't necessarily need to know what he'd discovered so far regarding Class 1A, the fact that the symbol of peace was so severely weakened was crucial. Japan couldn't rely on All Might's strength anymore. It was only a matter of time before All Might's 3 hours became 1, and then became none, and with villains targeting him, that eventuality was likely much closer than even Kakashi wanted to admit. There you are. Kaminari exclaimed, pushing off the wall and waving excitedly at Kakashi. Dude, Midoriya left like 10 minutes ago, what have you been doing? Ma. Kakashi let his eye crinkle up into a good-natured smile once again. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. Try me, Kaminari challenged. Kakashi leaned in conspiratorially. I broke my ribs while reading Pawn. Wah. Kakashi laughed and started walking away, twirling a finger over his shoulder. Told you. Come on now, Kaminari. If we don't hurry, we'll miss the train. Kaminari spluttered and scrambled after him. Seriously? You were reading Pawn. Kakashi shrugged. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. You could tell everyone you know, and no one would believe you. The blonde whined. Dude, you're so hard to pin down. 1 minute you're dead serious and the next I can't tell if you're around with me or not. It's the childhood trauma, Kakashi responded. Makes it hard to understand what makes me tick. Don't worry, even I don't get me sometimes. You'll get used to it. Kaminari laughed, shaking his head. You're crazy, dude. Aren't we all? Kakashi asked. Say, I'll race you to the train station? You're on. Kaminari slid up to him, vibrating in excitement. You ready for today, man? Kakashi rolled out his neck and shoulders. I sure am. Are you ready to get absolutely throttled? Oh, Kakashi's laying down the trash talk, Zero joked. Sheet's gettin' serious. It was the morning of the UA Sports Festival, and the excitement was high in the school. Every which way he turned, Kakashi could hear people talking about the sports festival. Some people were nervous to be on television, fussing over their hair and uniforms, while others were more confident, like Uraraka at the back of the classroom, who was yelling, I'm gonna do my best. Kakashi didn't understand the hype, but maybe that was because he was annoyed that he'd have to be on national television in the first place. He sighed and mentally reminded himself that it was all for the mission. All of the acting, all of the friendly smiles, all of the research, it was all for the mission. He needed to find the traitor in UA sooner rather than later, else he might just go insane. He missed the days when he'd been retired. Why couldn't he retire again? Oh right, he's 15. I'm just speaking the truth, Kakashi said with a nonchalant shrug. Kaminari's going to be too busy flirting with the girls from the other classes to remember that he's supposed to be competing. Zero threw his head back in laughter while Kaminari clutched at his chest in mock offense. Kakashi! Hataki! A serious voice cut into their conversation and Kakashi turned to find Aizawa, still bandaged up, standing in the doorway. A word. Oop, Kaminari said, voice dropping down low into a whisper. What did you do? Ma? Nothing, Kakashi waved a hand through the air. He's probably just figured out who the Muffin Man is or something. See ya, he told them, and approached Aizawa. Aizawa led him through the halls without a word and into an empty office. Kakashi glanced around curiously, but didn't strike up a conversation. Aizawa had pulled him aside for a reason. He could be the one to speak first. Have you made any progress on your investigation? Aizawa asked. I've been here a week, Aizawa-san. Kakashi reminded him. The only progress I've made is getting to know everyone. Finding a traitor is going to take time. I know, I was just asking if you've ruled anyone out. Oh sure. Ida and Todoroki are most likely clear, they're both related to heroes. I doubt either of them would be a traitor, though admittedly Todoroki does act suspicious from time to time. I'll keep my eyes on them, regardless. I'm not careless with my work. Aizawa nodded. Good to know. You can also rule out Bakugo, Midoriya, and Kirishima, if you'd like. Kakashi pet his head to the side. Why would I do that? After his experience with Midoriya, he wasn't sure he wanted to rule out Midoriya. Kid was suspicious as hell. Those three, along with Todoroki, directly fought the villains in the USJ, right in front of my face. Also, Azui and Mineta almost got killed by the main villain, so they're probably clear too. Kakashi shook his head. Either of those could have been cleaning up the loose ends. But I'll consider confirming what you've said about Bakugo, Midoriya, and Kirishima. Aizawa grunted. He must not have been amused by Kakashi not trusting his judgment, but couldn't say anything because Kakashi had a point. Is that all? Kakashi asked. No, Aizawa said. Your relation to the HPSC will be publicly announced at the sports festival to cement the cover story of you being here to build the bond between UA and the HPSC. I want to make sure you know to do your best. Don't throw the competition like you tried to in my Quirk assessment test. Kakashi reached up and ran a hand through his hair. I know, I've got it covered. He'd been dreading this ever since Aizawa had brought it up the first time. He wasn't allowed to skimp out in the first or second round, not as the HPSC's current poster child. Well, second poster child. Kakashi was still sure that Hawks took the cake for the director's greatest pride and joy. Being the number 3 hero would do that. But I expect you to do your best, Aizawa said, and then gestured with his still fully casted arm towards the door. Go get ready. The festival starts soon. Dude, you totally missed it, Kaminari babbled as they walked towards the stadium, taking a tunnel underneath the structure so that they could all avoid the crowds. After Aizawa-sensei pulled you away, all these students from other classes came to scout us out. Bakugo said they were checking out the competition. Yeah, and there was this one guy with purple hair who said that if he did well enough in the festival, the teachers might kick one of us out to make room for him, Siro tacked on. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, we already got you. Imagine someone getting kicked out and replaced with a Gen Ed kid. I could never, Kakashi said sarcastically. I mean, come on, why do you have to replace anyone? Just be like me and show up. That comment garnered a few chuckles and snorts from his classmates that had been listening in, along with Kaminari and Siro themselves. Not everyone has the HPSC in their corner, Kaminari reminded him. Some of us are just lowly nobodies. Kakashi hummed his assent and was about to respond when he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. He pulled it out to check the notification, only to find a text from the world's most annoying hero. Puss. Good luck, kiddo. I'm working today so I can't come watch you, but you can bet that I'll be checking the news like every 5 minutes. Focus on hero work. And what are you, my supportive soccer mom? Puss. Absolutely. I'm gonna get a t-shirt with your face on it. Please don't. Puss. 3. But really, have fun and good luck. Make sure to put those UA kids in their places. Whatever. Go eat your fried chicken. Puss. Shocked. How did you know I was eating fried chicken? Have eyes everywhere. Puss. Do I need to put tape over my phone camera again? Again? Puss. You know, my handlers say that I'm a handful and an annoyance. Clearly they never met you. Thanks. Try my best. Puss. Middle finger brat. Yo, Kakashi, Earth to Kakashi. Kaminari waved his hands in front of Kakashi's face. Kakashi looked up. Who are you texting? You haven't looked up from your phone for the last 2 minutes. Kakashi slipped his phone back into his pocket. Sorry, I was texting Hawks. The reaction was immediate, and by reaction, Kakashi meant that nearly the entire class turned on him and yelled, "You or what?" Hey little listeners. Present Mike announced to the stadium full of people, his voice somehow louder than the deafening cheering that came from the stands. Welcome to the UA Sports Festival. We're super pumped to have you here. Kakashi stood underneath the stands with the rest of the first years, all of them waiting for their cue to walk out into the arena. We have a super exciting lineup of students waiting to show you all what they can do, so let's hear a big round of applause for our first years. And that was the cue they were waiting for. The crowd roared and applauded as they all stepped out of the shadows and into view of the cameras and audience. Kakashi knew he had a role to play. He needed to project himself as the powerful student of the HPSC, which meant that he had to act like it, even when he was surrounded by dozens of other kids his age who probably made it near impossible to pick him out in the crowd. Now, before we get started on our first round, we first have to give the student pledge. Midnight? Midnight, one of the teachers at UA and apparently the person doing the refereeing for the festival stepped forward and cracked her WHP to draw attention to her. She flashed a grin that was more predatory than it was friendly, and Kakashi noticed several people visibly shiver around him. Now, don't look so timid, she told them. Our student giving the pledge will be the top scorer on the entrance exams, Bakugo Katsuki. Bakugo grunted and stepped forward to the podium waiting for him with a microphone, while several people around Kakashi muttered things along the lines of, "Bakugo? Seriously?" Kakashi had to agree with the sentiment. There was no way this would go smoothly. Bakugo cleared his throat, and the stadium fell nearly silent, waiting for Bakugo's pledge. "I just want to say," Bakugo began, voice gruff, "that I'm gonna win." Kakashi snorted. That was even more on brand for Bakugo than he'd been expecting. Around him, his yearmates yelled at Bakugo in protest. He distinctly caught Kirishima griping that Bakugo was totally misrepresenting them and making them all seem like total jerks. Personally, Kakashi liked the pledge. He couldn't wait to see Bakugo try to live up to it. Present mic started over the speakers. "Well, that was certainly the most interesting pledge I've ever heard. Give it up for the first years one more time, folks." The audience followed suit, as expected for a large crowd of people, while the terrain around Kakashi and the other students began to shift. Kakashi noticed that they were being set up for the beginning of a marathon of some sort. Now, Present Mike yelled over the roar of the audience. "Let's get our first event started. Get ready, get set. Because the first grueling task our first years will have to endure is UA's very own obstacle course." "Oh, wonderful. An obstacle course. Kakashi could do those." As Present Mike detailed how the course would be run around the arena, Kakashi began stretching. This body wasn't like his last one in which he could do a bunch of physical exercise and augment his body with chakra to make up for muscle strain and exertion. Nope, in this one he actually had to worry about pulling a leg muscle while running. Stupid chakra-less body. 3/4 of the way through his stretching routine, the buzzer blared, signaling the start of the race. Kakashi kept stretching, letting students swarm around him. Just because he had to try during this stupid festival didn't mean that he was going to get trampled trying to get through the DMN door. The race course circled around the outside of the arena, which meant that to reach it, they first had to get through the narrow doorway that led outside. If there weren't upwards of 200 students trying to get through, it wouldn't be an issue, but since there were, the doorway was like an overflowing funnel. He folded himself over, stretching out his lower back and hamstrings, listening idly to the commentary Aizawa was providing over the speakers. "The door is the first obstacle," the man said. "Some students are getting ahead by using their quirks, that's smart." "And what about Hatake?" Present Mike asked, confusion lacing his tone. Kakashi shifted to the side to keep stretching. "He's stretching," Aizawa said blandly. "Perhaps he's waiting for the crowd to thin out. Perhaps he's just being lazy." Kakashi chuckled at that. "Whoa!" Present Mike exclaimed. Todoroki just froze. They ground at the entryway, stopping his competition in their tracks. "Not all of them," Aizawa corrected. "Some of them got through. Probably more than he expected." Kakashi leaned to the other side. He was the only one left in the main arena now. Just another minute or so, and the doorway should be clear enough for him to get through without getting shoved into anyone. Todoroki is racing ahead. Fitting for the son of the number 2 hero, Present Mike continued, and Kakashi glanced up at one of the large TVs that was displaying the obstacle race to find that Todoroki was indeed far ahead of the competition, already coming upon the next obstacle while everyone else was still dealing with his ice barrage. Kakashi stood up straight, and figured now was the time to get moving. Oh, Kataki's finally on the move. Kakashi slipped through the people still frozen to the ground in the doorway, pleasantly surprised at how easy it was. He weaved between them, and they came out on the other side, beginning to pick up a fast-paced jog that he figured he could keep up the entire round, barring any unforeseen obstacles. And that was exactly what he did. While other students faced off against the robots on the course, Kakashi simply ran past them faster than the robots could attack him. When he reached the obstacle that consisted of a giant cavern in the ground that could only be crossed by using ropes, Kakashi jogged across those too. By the time he'd done that, he'd blown past the majority of the other competitors. Chances were he was in the first 10 now. He kept jogging steadily, part of him comparing this to one of the more elaborate training simulations he'd tricked Boruto into doing when he was a child. Fun times. Ahead, Todoroki and Bakugo reached the final obstacle. Kakashi slowed his pace. He didn't actually want to bypass them and come in first. Around him, students raced ahead of him. He counted them carefully and picked up his pace once again after 15 of them had passed him. His feet hit the ground in a steady staccato as he ran, and his ears listened idly to present mixed commentary about Todoroki's and Bakugo's ongoing battle up ahead. Kakashi reached the final obstacle and noted that the ground was covered in hidden landmines. They were visible enough, but there were many of them. They'd be difficult to dodge for most competitors. He began to cross the field, deftly avoiding each landmine, but only got about 10 steps in when a massive explosion went off behind him. Kakashi's eyes snapped upwards to find Midoriya soaring through the air on a sheet of metal, likely taken from the robots earlier. He slowed his pace and tracked Midoriya's arc across the sky as his body flew by overhead, propelled by the explosion he'd undoubtedly caused. It wasn't often that Kakashi thought, yeah, that's something Naruto would do, but this was one of those times. He kept running. Halfway through the final obstacle, he heard Present Mike announce that Midoriya had come in first, with Todoroki in second and Bakugo in third. Kakashi came in 12th. He was perfectly content with that score. There wasn't time between the first and second rounds to stand around and chat. After the 42nd person came through the gate, the tournament continued on. The second round was a cavalry battle. Teams of 2 to 4 would be formed, each with horses and one rider. Everyone would be assigned a number value based on what they'd scored in the first round, and that meant that the people who got the first, second, and third places had the highest number values assigned to them. Midoriya had it the worst. 10 million points. Kakashi was assigned a value of 155 points, while Todoroki had Kakashi's count was good, in his opinion. Not enough to draw attention like Midoriya undoubtedly would, but enough to get him into the third round. Midnight snapped her WHP and told the students that they had 5 minutes to form teams. Kakashi surveyed the students around him, looking for potential teammates. Everyone was avoiding Midoriya and his 10 million points like the plague, and Kakashi would usually have taken that opportunity to go join him, except the phantom pain of Midoriya punching him not 4 days earlier danced across his ribs. While Kakashi would like to join Midoriya, he got the impression that Midoriya wouldn't feel the same. He kept looking around, eyes searching for the one person Kakashi figured would team up with him. However, when he found Kaminari's shock of yellow hair, he also found Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Ida speaking with him. Well, DMN, Kaminari was taken. Nearby, several students were swarming around Bakugo, all asking to join his team. Knowing Bakugo, he'd choose the people with the quirks best suited to what he needed. Kirishima would be first to be accepted due to his hardening quirk. Everyone else was a toss-up. His eyes kept scanning over the arena, unsure what he was looking for until he found it. The general education kid he'd heard about was talking to Aoyama, a smirk plastered on his face. Kakashi didn't know anything about the guy, but he did know that general studies students don't just get into the second round of the sports festival without a few tricks up their sleeves. Kakashi approached the boy and Aoyama, noticing that Aoyama was looking oddly subdued. "Hey," he greeted. The boy turned to him, eyes widening in shock. Kakashi had caught him off guard. "Hey," the kid said, hand rising to rub at the back of his neck. "Hey, Aoyama," Kakashi said to the boy. Aoyama's eyes were blank, Disturbingly so. For a moment, Aoyama didn't respond. Then, the blank look dropped from his eyes and he glanced around wildly. "Oh, hello, Hataki-kun," he greeted. Kakashi stole a look at the purple-haired boy, who gave him a sheepish smile. Something was fishy here, and Kakashi's mind instantly jumped to his search for the traitor. My, Aoyama," Kakashi said slowly. "I think the three of us should be a team. How do you feel about going to recruit someone else for us? Someone strong and durable, perhaps?" Aoyama flashed a bright grin. "I can do that." And with that, he walked off into the crowd of students still looking for a team. Kakashi dropped his voice low. "You might want to explain what that was before I get the wrong idea," he warned. The Gen Ed kid gulped. "Look, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm just trying to get far enough into this tournament so I can transfer into the hero course." "What did you do to him? What were you planning to do?" The threat in Kakashi's voice was thinly disguised, and he knew that the kid in front of him could feel the malice lacing Kakashi's words. "It's my quirk," he admitted. "I can brainwash people. I was just trying to get him to join my team. I was planning on controlling him and whoever else I could get for the entire round so that there wouldn't be any screw-ups." Kakashi glanced around at the stadium. Thousands of people had come to watch the sports festival, and any of those thousands of people could be villains. This boy's story was weak. From Kakashi's perspective, it looked like he'd been about to use Aoyama for something malicious. The villains wouldn't attack UA nearly 2 weeks after their first attack, Kakashi's reasonable side told him. They're still liking their wounds. He kept his glare on the boy. "What's your name?" "Shinso Hitoshi," he said. Kakashi nodded slowly. "All right, Shinso. You're going to want to keep that quirk of yours away from me and our teammates, because right now, I don't trust you." Shinso's jaw locked. "I'm not a villain. I know what my quirk looks like, but I'm not." Kakashi stepped up close, getting into Shinso's personal space. "Then stop acting like one." Shinso's head twitched slightly and he looked away. "Hataki, look." Aoyama walked up to them, pulling a boy from Class 1B behind him by the hair. "I found the most perfect student to complete our team." The boy Aoyama was pulling behind him had wild gray locks and bushy eyebrows, and Kakashi was honestly surprised that Aoyama had picked this one. He'd figured Aoyama would go for someone more flashy. "Will you let me go?" the boy yelled, thrashing in Aoyama's surprisingly tight grip. Kakashi sent one more look at Shinso, who averted his gaze near immediately, and then approached the gray-haired kid. "Hey, I'm Kakashi. I'm the transfer student from the HPSC." The boy finally threw off Aoyama and stood up straight. "Yeah, I know who you are. Geez, he totally just stole me away from the team I was about to join." Aoyama winked at Kakashi. "Well, you're with us now," Kakashi smiled. "That's Aoyama and that's Shinso. You are." The boy grunted and crossed his arms. "Tetsu tetsu tetsu tetsu. And what makes me think I'm staying with you guys?" Kakashi shrugged. "You don't have to, but I am more powerful than Todoroki and Bakugo combined, so if you want to get into the next round, I'd suggest you think about your next actions carefully." Tetsu Tetsu frowned, arms still crossed. "Sorry, you're what?" Shinso choked out beside him. "You heard what I said," Kakashi responded. "Fine," Tetsu Tetsu grumbled. "Ugh, I'm totally gonna have to listen to Monoma's yapping for this." Kakashi clapped his hands together happily. "Great. In that case, Tetsu Tetsu, you're in the front. Aoyama and I are on the sides, and Shinso, you're the rider." "What?" Shinso asked incredulously. "Why am I the rider and not you?" "Height," Kakashi said. "You're taller than all of us. Having you as one of the horses would put us at an angle that will make it hard to walk around. Conversely, if we put you on top, the heights of all of the horses are near identical." The three of them considered that. "Okay," Shinso conceded. "I'll be the rider. But how much help are you going to be if you're carrying me around?" Kakashi's face crinkled up into a gleeful grin. "Oh, my quirk is a bit unique. If I decide to use it, I assure you that it won't matter where I am in the formation." "That sounds ominous, Mon Ami," Aoyama told him. "I try my best." "All right, competitors. Present Mike interrupted their conversation. Time's up. Submit your teams and then get into your formations, because the cavalry battle is about to begin. Kakashi gave his team a thumbs up and turned to Aoyama. Go submit our team formation to midnight. Aoyama gave him a dramatic salute and ran off. Shinso, Kakashi started. Keep an eye out while you're up there. Shinso nodded, bit his lip, and then spoke. Hey, I know we got off on the wrong foot, but I'm really not a bad guy. You think he's a bad guy? Tetsu asked. Kakashi didn't answer Tetsu's question. I don't care what you are at the moment, Kakashi responded. Because I know that you won't dare do anything while I'm watching your every move. Shinso gulped. Aoyama returned, handed Shinso the headband with all of their combined points, 405, and they all got into position, the three of them lifting Shinso up so that he sat above them all as the rider. And then, with a loud buzzer horn, the second round began. We should stay back, Kakashi told his teammates. They hadn't had the time to hash out a plan yet, and the beginning of the round was bound to be the most chaotic. Proving Kakashi's point, half of the teams rushed Midoriya's immediately, who evaded by using jetpack boots to fly off the ground and avoid the attacks. Well, that's one way to do it. Kakashi noted the surrounding teams. Team Todoroki had Ida, Kaminari, and Yaoyorozu, as expected. Team Midoriya had Tokoyami and Uraraka, along with a pink-haired girl that must have been the one to supply the jetpack boots. Team Bakugo had Kirishima, Siro, and Ishido. It was impossible to tell who Shoji's teammates were, as he was using his arms to cover them while they sat on his back, keeping their headbands safe. Several of the other teams comprised people from Class 1B that Kakashi didn't know yet. He didn't want to go after Bakugo. The explosive blonde would probably just hone in on them and try to beat Kakashi and his team into a pulp if they did that. He didn't want to go after Midoriya, because the 10 million points were too attention-drawing. He didn't want to go after Todoroki's team either. They were too well-rounded, and Kakashi figured that given that he was the son of Endeavor, the number 2 hero, Todoroki's power was no joke. Alright, Tetsu said. But what's the plan? We gotta get more points than the ones we have if we want to win. Kakashi hummed. We wait for another team to come to us. Then I'll take their points. His teammates, to their credit, didn't ask how he was going to do that. So they waited. They stood along the edge of the arena, watching the chaos go down around them as points jumped back and forth across teams, the timer ticking down. And then the arena got split down the middle by a wall of ice, and Kakashi's team was separated from teams Midoriya and Todoroki. He scoffed. Good strategy, Todoroki. No one could keep the 10 million except him or Midoriya now. Kakashi was willing to put his money on Team Todoroki coming out victorious, only because Midoriya apparently couldn't use his quirk unless he wanted to break his bones, and the boy was unlikely to risk that sort of damage in the second round. Eyes up, Shinso alerted them, and Kakashi turned to find one of the teams from Class 1B approaching them. Names and quirks, he told Tetsu. Honuki's the front horse. Tetsu filled in quickly. He's a recommendation student. He can soften anything he touches to a liquid state. Away's the rider, he can weld things together. It looks like he's welded himself to the people holding him to keep him from falling off. Shizaki's the girl. Her quirk gives her vines in her hair that she can grow as much as she wants. Fukudashi's quirk is comic. He can say stuff like, bam, and it'll happen. The team got closer to them. Kakashi caught sight of their headband, along with the two others they'd grabbed during the fighting. 555, 420, they'd racked up a good amount of points. Too bad Kakashi was about to take them all. He reached up with his one free hand and uncovered his eye. Tsukumo Hataki, he muttered, and then the man swirled into existence in between him and the other team. What the? Honuki started, stopping dead in his tracks. Tsukumo glanced around at the arena before giving Kakashi a quizzical raise of his eyebrow. Hi, Kakashi said, that stupid, giddy feeling rising in his gut like it did every time he got to see his Tusan again. Take the headbands of that team for me, will you? You don't need to seriously hurt them, but I won't complain if you knock them out. Tsukumo chuckled. I keep thinking that one day you're going to summon me for something dangerous, but today isn't that day, I suppose. He turned on Team Away's, and the three people acting as horses automatically backed up. Kakashi held back a smirk. That's right. Be afraid of Konoha's white fang. In a matter of seconds, Team Away's fell unconscious from blows that had been too fast to see. Tsukumo untied the headbands from around Away's neck and passed them up to Shinso, who took them with a shaky hand. Thanks, sir," Shinso stuttered out. "You're welcome." Tsukumo smiled kindly at Shinso. "What just happened?" Present Mike screamed over the speakers, and Kakashi could see him on one of the screens waving his arms wildly. Team Shinsu just got over 1,000 points to their score in a matter of seconds, and Team Away's has been completely disqualified. Several cameras turned away from the other smaller fights to point at their situation on the edge of the arena. "Ah, was that what I was supposed to do?" Tsukumo asked, suddenly sheepish. "You did great," Kakashi assured him. "Raise a wall. I don't want anyone getting any ideas that they can come take our points." He did some quick mental math and figured that their points totaled at 1,770 now. More than enough to assure that the four of them would get into the final round. 2 minutes left on the clock. Now it was just a waiting game. Tsukumo placed his hands together in a few signs that Kakashi recognized as a mud wall, and then the man bent down to place his hands on the concrete underneath him. The cement cracked, and then a massive mud wall rose up, sealing their group off from the rest of the competition. Over the speakers, Present Mike lost his mind over the new addition to the battlefield. "Dazzling," Aoyama breathed. "Tsukumo-san clearly knows how to shine." "Yeah," Tetsu and Shinso agreed, voices hazy. Tsukumo dusted off his hands. "So, Kakashi, want to explain what exactly we're doing here?" "We're playing an elaborate game show," he said, and then jerked his head to the side to gesture vaguely towards the crowds. "UA's Sports Festival. This is the second round, and the four of us will be heading into the third now that we've gotten so many points." Tsukumo's eyes sparkled with pride. "Sounds like you're having fun." Kakashi shrugged. "We'll call it that." Tsukumo didn't look convinced by Kakashi's nonchalance. The man opened his mouth to say something, but then the buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the second round. Kakashi, Aoyama, and Tetsu lowered Shinso back to the ground, and once they were done with that, Kakashi pulled Tsukumo aside. "Thank you, Two-san." Tsukumo ruffled his hair and then pulled him close, pressing a secretive kiss to the top of Kakashi's head. "Always happy to help you," Tsukumo muttered. "Do you still need me?" Kakashi always needed him, in his opinion. But he couldn't say that. He also couldn't keep a summon in this world for that long. "No, thank you for helping, Tsukumo." And with that, Tsukumo vanished back into the realm he'd come from. "Your quirk never fails to excite, Monami," Aoyama commented once Kakashi returned to the group. Kakashi shrugged. "It's just a quirk." Shinso scoffed, muttering, "At least be proud of your quirk, Ahole." Kakashi paused at that. Shinsu's quirk was brainwashing, right? He said it was a villain's quirk, or something like that. Maybe powerful, flashy quirks were a sore spot for him. Over the speakers, Present Mike began to announce the groups and their placings in the second round, which drew Kakashi's attention away from his Shinso Hitoshi predicament and towards the television. First place, Team Todoroki with 10,675 points. Second place, Team Shinso with 1,770 points. Third place, Team Bakugo with 1,215 points. Fourth place, Team Midoriya with 480 points. The remaining 165 points were still held between the remaining teams, but have since been disqualified as only 16 competitors may continue. "All right," Tetsu exclaimed, pumping a fist into the air. "Ooh, we did it, guys." "Well, he did it for us, but whatever, it still counts." "Yo, Kakashi!" Kaminari yelled, running up to Kakashi with Zero not far behind. "Second place. That's awesome, dude. You know, I felt bad about letting Todoroki drag me into his team, but we both did awesome." Kakashi let his eyes crinkle up into a smile. "We sure did. You want to get lunch with us?" Zero chimed in, having reached them while Kaminari was babbling. "I don't know about you guys, but keeping up with Bakugo wore me out." Next thing Kakashi knew, he was being shoved into a seat by Kirishima, Kaminari plopping down next to him, and Zero across from them. "I'll be right back," Kirishima said. "I gotta go find and tame our wild Bakugu." Kaminari grinned widely, giving Kirishima a thumbs up with a chirped, "Don't get blown up," before digging into his food. "Eat," Zero smacked Kakashi over the head. "You never eat lunch, which is not acceptable today. We're gonna be doing a lot today, you need food." Kakashi blinked slowly at Zero, and then mentally crossed him off of his list of potential traitors. Across every interaction Kakashi had had with him so far, Zero had done nothing to warrant suspicion. His personality was steady and laid back, with a tendency to joke around like any normal teenager would, and an obvious care for those he considered friends. Kakashi didn't think Zero was completely clear of suspicion. However, he wouldn't waste his time on investigating Zero now when there were plenty others in the class more worthy of his time. Shinso, for instance. Fine. Kakashi sighed. He picked up some of his food with his chopsticks, pulled down his mask so that it revealed his lips, and shoveled the food into his mouth. Kaminari was too busy eating his food to notice, and Zero respectfully looked away the second Kakashi made to lower his mask. "Psst, Kaminari," a voice whispered behind them, and Kakashi nearly stabbed the person with his chopsticks out of surprise. Kaminari and Kakashi both turned to find Mineta standing behind him, a glint in his eyes and a smirk on his face. "Yeah, dude?" Kaminari asked around a mouthful of food. "I heard there are cheerleaders for the intermission games," Mineta whispered conspiratorially. "Whoa, really?" Kaminari perked up. "Are they hot?" Mineta nodded appreciatively. "But that's not what I'm trying to get at here. There's extra uniforms. You should help me convince the girls that it's required for them to go cheerlead. Don't you think Yaoyorozu would look absolutely smokin' in one of those outfits?" Kaminari's eyes widened. "Holy shit, dude. Oh, I am so in." "Absolutely not," Kakashi said, smacking Kaminari on the top of his head. "Was?" Kaminari gasped out, clutching at his head. "Dude? Why not?" "Because that's inappropriate." "Yeah, right," says the guy who reads Pawn in public. Kakashi rolled his eyes. "Pawn is different from publicly humiliating your classmates, or did you forget that the entire sports festival is being broadcasted on national television?" Kaminari deflated. "Oh, right, yeah, we probably shouldn't do that." "Thank you," Kakashi said. He looked at Mineta. "Don't you dare think of it again, or I'll find you." He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. Mineta looked ready to pee himself as it was. "Right?" Mineta started. "I'm just gonna go now. I'm sure Shoji won't mind having lunch with me." The purple-haired boy scampered off, visibly shaking even as he ran away. "Dude, you didn't need to scare him." Kaminari complained. Kakashi shrugged and went back to eating. Not a minute later, Kirishima showed back up with 2 trays of food and an oddly calm Bakugu. They sat down and began eating. "Good job, you two," Kirishima said happily around his food. "Your teams were so great in the cavalry battle." "Thanks, man," Kaminari replied happily. "Todoroki's like super angsty, but he's a good teammate when it counts. He had such a solid plan." Bakugu scoffed, grumbled under his breath about icy hot being a traumatized beach, then dug into his food like he was trying to destroy it, not eat it. "That's awesome," Kirishima said without missing a beat, despite the fact that Bakugu's presence was the equivalent of having a rabid dog sitting next to him. "Our team was really well balanced," Kirishima continued, clapping Bakugu on the shoulder. "We had our powerhouse, then me as a front horse to keep us safe and sturdy, Zero to keep Bakugu from disqualifying us, and Ishido kept us mobile. It was pretty perfect. We totally would have gotten that 10 million had we had a little more time." Kaminari laughed. "Yeah, right, my team would have creamed you guys." "No, you wouldn't have, dunce face," Bakugu yelled, causing Kaminari to fall out of his seat in surprise, letting out a very dignified yelp. Relax, blasty," Kakashi said. "Just because Mr. I'm gonna win keeps getting third doesn't mean you gotta cry about it." Unsurprisingly, Bakugu only got angrier at that. Kakashi chuckled in amusement as Bakugu tried to lunge across the table to claw out Kakashi's throat, only to get held back by Kirishima. Hey man, he's just teasing you. Kirishima placated rather pointlessly. Like hell he is. Bakugo screamed, drawing the attention of everyone in the room that wasn't already staring at them. I'm gonna kill you. Kakashi raised his hands in surrender. No need to resort to homicide, he said. Why can't we just be friends? Bakugo screamed more and Kakashi would have laughed if it didn't look like it was taking everything in Kirishima to keep the boy from actually trying to kill Kakashi. Kakashi chuckled and stood from his seat, patting Bakugo on the head. Don't worry, Blasty. I'll leave you alone now. I think the bathroom is calling me anyways. Kakashi walked away, happily using that excuse to get away from the table of students he'd been forced to sit with for lunch. He wasn't actually going to go to the bathroom, as there was something he needed to do first. Kakashi walked through the halls, steps silent, making his way towards where the general education students had their break room. He opened the door and found a shock of lilac hair sitting towards the back of the room. Hey! Kakashi waved joyfully. Shinso, come over here. Shinso looked up from his meal, caught sight of Kakashi, and turned sheet white. Hey! Hissed voice meek. Shinso looked around at his classmates, half of which weren't around because they were down in the arena participating in the intermission games, probably looking for someone to save him from having to talk to Kakashi. However, no one did. Shinso stood and walked over to Kakashi, biting his lip nervously. How was your lunch? Kakashi asked, closing the door behind Shinso as soon as the boy left the room. Well, I didn't get to finish it. Shame, Kakashi said. Let's go find somewhere quiet to chat. Why? Shinso squeaked out. You'll find out, Kakashi chirped. Come along now. Shinso followed Kakashi through the halls until Kakashi found an empty room, which he opened the door to and gestured Shinso in. This feels like the setup to a murder, Shinso muttered. Kakashi chuckled. It might be. What? Kakashi flicked on the lights to the room and closed the door behind him, locking it. I'm gonna let you in on a secret here, Shinso. Kakashi hummed. There's a traitor in UA, and I've been assigned to find them. And right now, you're at the top of my list. Shinso spluttered, coughed, spluttered some more, and then managed out another, what? Kakashi leaned back against the door. You heard me. Now, we can do this the fun way or the not-so-fun way. I'm really open for either. Look, Shinso coughed again. First off, what in the world makes you think there's a traitor in UA? Second off, you saw me use my quirk on your classmate once, and that was just so I could get an advantage in the tournament. Why am I your top suspect? Kakashi held up a finger. Brainwashing quirk, real convenient for a villain. Another finger. You're trying to get into the hero course, likely for more information on the students there since they were a large reason the plot at the USJ failed. Another. Used your quirk on one of my classmates before the match had even begun. A fourth. General disdain for people with powerful and flashy quirks, like heroes tend to have. The last finger. And your quirk would be perfect for a spy, especially one meant to get into places where you shouldn't be without anyone knowing. Panic was written across Shinso's face like someone had taken permanent marker to his skin. Okay, well, when you put it like that, Shinso started, fists clenching and unclenching, stuttering over his words as he tried to piece together what Kakashi was saying. It sounds really f***ing bad. But I swear, I'm not a villain. I want to be a hero, genuinely, desperately. All my life, all I've ever heard is what a perfect villain I would be, and I seriously want nothing more than to be a hero and prove them all wrong. Kakashi stalked forward, getting in Shinso's personal space, the boy shuffling backwards frantically as Kakashi approached. That's so. Yes, Shinso breathed out. Yes, please don't kill me. I'm not a spy for the villains, I'm just a kid trying to be a hero. The desperation in his voice was real. The fear in his eyes was real. The way Shinso's entire body trembled was real. But that wasn't enough to disprove anything. Kakashi stepped back. How do you feel about proving it to me? Huh. A mind-reading session, if you will. Kakashi lifted his headband, revealing his black eye with all of its cracks and the glowing red Sharingan. You can do that? Shinso squeaked. Ma, not me, Persit. friend. He could either clear you of all charges, or convict you for life. Shinso liked his lip, fiddling with his fingers. He took a deep breath. I have nothing to hide. The most illegal thing I've done was steal a cat, and that was because it was being abused by its owner. Shinso straightened, still looking terrified, but rising to his full height, regardless. Do it. I'm innocent. Kakashi nodded. Itachi Uchiha. He called, and Itachi's form came into existence in between him and Shinso. Itachi scanned Shinso's visibly shaking form. What did you do to him? He asked immediately, looking at Kakashi judgmentally. Kakashi shrugged. I may have threatened him. Why? Itachi asked. I'm looking for a traitor in UA. He says that he's innocent. Could you confirm his story for me? Itachi squinted at Kakashi. The fact that this isn't the first time I've had to do this for you is weird. Kakashi's eyebrows scrunched up in confusion, unsure what Itachi was referring to before he remembered. Oh wow, that was a blast to the past. But that had been a fun mission. Kakashi had gotten to sit back and let his precious little Kohai do all the work for him. Kakashi didn't miss his ANBU days per se, but they sure hadn't been boring. Itachi approached Shinso. Alright, this might feel weird, but I'll try not to make it painful. No promises though, Itachi said, and then Kakashi felt the distinct spike in chakra associated with the activation of the Sharingan. Kakashi waited patiently. After a few minutes, Itachi pulled away. He's not who you're looking for, Itachi told him. Erase his memory of this entire thing, make him think we were having a conversation about cats. Itachi's lips ticked up into a smile. Cats? Kakashi waved an annoyed hand through the air. Look at him and tell me he's not a cat guy. I don't have to, Itachi responded. He's definitely a cat guy. See, Kakashi said as Itachi returned to using his Sharingan on Shinso, this time with the intention of erasing his memories about Kakashi's interrogation. When he was done, Kakashi waved a goodbye to Itachi, sent him away, and waited for Shinso to snap out of it. It only took a moment. Shinso shook his head. What were we talking about? Sorry, I just spaced out for a minute there. Cats, Kakashi smiled. You were telling me about how you're planning to use your pro-hero money to buy more cats. Shinso's face lit up. Oh yeah. So I really want to use whatever money I get from working as a hero to set up a shelter for strays and stuff, and probably adopt a lot of them myself. So many animals are misunderstood, and they all deserve a home that will treat them right, you know. He said, and then continued to talk about how the shelter in his hometown had been torn down in order to build a gas station. Kakashi let Shinso babble for a few minutes about cats before he decided he was tired of hearing about cats and interrupted Shinso in order to mention that they should go back to their meals before the break was over. Oh right. Shinso blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry, I was totally rambling right there. I don't usually do that, it's just, people don't usually talk to me without being afraid of my quirk. Kakashi nodded, face stoic. Internally, he re-evaluated his thoughts on Shinso entirely. He was just like one of those strays that he talked about, misunderstood and in need of someone that would take the time to see past the flaws on the surface. Kakashi had jumped to conclusions too quickly. He was acting like a villain, his inner voice reminded him. He brainwashed Aoyama before the match had even started, and could have easily had alternative intentions. You're just doing your job. Besides, Shinso doesn't even remember you accusing him of being a villain. It's fine. Kakashi didn't feel that way, though. He'd been rash, thinking that he'd found the traitor he was looking for so quickly and easily. But he hadn't. He just hoped, took the dive, and found himself at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. He'd have to be more careful next time he got a lead. He couldn't go around having Itachi mind read and then wipe everyone in the school. He was pretty sure that counted as morally questionable quirk usage, and while Kakashi was fine with that, UA would not be. I get that, he said sympathetically to Shinso. You're a good guy, but you should work a bit on acting like that and a little less like how people perceive you. Shinso winced. Yeah, okay, that's fair. You do my best. Good, Kakashi said, and then gave him a small wave before heading back out the door, leaving Shinso alone, completely oblivious to how close he'd gotten to getting himself arrested. As he walked down the hallway, Kakashi picked up on voices coming from ahead of him. He frowned, listening closely, determining that this was a conversation he wasn't meant to overhear. "You're acting disgracefully, Shoto." Silence. "Had you just used your left side, you would have had an overwhelming victory in both of the first rounds," a deep voice said, and it sounded enough like Todoroki's voice that Kakashi placed it as the only other voice it could be. His father's. "Endeavor. It's time you stop this childish rebellion," Endeavor continued as Todoroki still failed to respond. "You have a duty to surpass that imbecile, All Might. Do you understand? You're different from your siblings, you're my greatest masterpiece." Kakashi's jaw clenched at the words. Duty. Masterpiece. Endeavor was talking like his son was his pet, his perfect experiment. It reminded him of his days in ANBU with Tenzo. "Is that all you have to say to me, you Bisudi?" Todoroki finally spoke up, voice seething, dripping with contempt. Kakashi could hear Todoroki's footsteps coming closer to him, but Kakashi didn't move, instead listening to Todoroki's next words. "I'll win this tournament using only Mom's quirk. I won't give you the pleasure of letting you see me use yours. Even if that works for you in this tournament," Endeavor hissed out. "It won't forever. You will soon find the limits of that ice quirk of yours." Todoroki turned the corner, and Kakashi could see him now. He could see his tense shoulders and clenched fists. He could see the boy's gritted teeth and glaring eyes. He hadn't seen someone this angry in years. Todoroki stalked right past Kakashi, either oblivious to his presence in his rage or uncaring. Kakashi watched him stalk away, unsure what to do. He'd ruled Todoroki out in his list of potential traitors early on due to his lineage, but now he was beginning to think that he might have to re-evaluate that decision. Todoroki Shoto was angry. He was hurt. He'd been wounded by the one person who was supposed to care for him most in this world, and Kakashi wouldn't be surprised if he wanted revenge. He closed his eyes, hearing the sounds of Todoroki's angry stomping fade out as he got further away. Kakashi had definitively ruled out one suspect today, possibly ruled out a few others, but he'd just gained a new one. Someone he hadn't expected. Someone he'd been hoping he could trust. Because the son of the number 2 hero being a villain? The son of the number 2 hero aiming to kill All Might in retaliation for the expectations his father had placed upon him? That was far worse than what Kakashi had imagined. If Todoroki Shoto was his traitor, then Kakashi had a bigger problem on his hands than he'd anticipated. Kakashi reached the viewing stands for Class 1A, a private box for the 20 of them to watch the third round from, still troubled by his thoughts. Todoroki and Shiro were down in the arena, their fight being the first match of the final round. Even from the stands, Kakashi could see the anger oozing from Todoroki, as though a tidal wave were building up in him, and this fight was about to let it out. Kakashi knew from experience that anger and battle were either the best combination, or the absolute worst. When the buzzer sounded, Todoroki made it clear which one it was. Kakashi had heard of Todoroki's overwhelming power before from his classmates. Todoroki was considered one of the best in the class for a reason, and it wasn't because of his shining personality. At first, Kakashi had taken that knowledge as a comfort. It would be good to have an ally that powerful. Todoroki Shoto was someone who could create glaciers in the span of seconds, and just had, against his own classmate. Kakashi had been looking at Todoroki like he was an ally, but with this new information regarding the son of Endeavor, he couldn't help but see the glacier covering half of the stadium as a threat. The stands shook so violently from the force of it that Uraraka, who'd been walking towards her seat, stumbled and fell into mid-area. Kaminari and Kirishima both yelped in surprise, and Kakashi himself found the hairs on the back of his neck standing up. Todoroki was a threat. He forced himself to calm down, to relax. Shiro had been Todoroki's opponent in the match. Kakashi doubted he was still fighting, not after an attack like that. Over the loudspeakers, Kakashi could hear Midnight's voice, her words shaking as she chittered from the chill that swept across the stadium. "Shiro, see, can you move?" The response was muffled to him, but Kakashi didn't need to see past the glacier blocking his view to know that there was no way Shiro had evaded that. Hell, half the stadium hadn't evaded that. S0 is immobile. Midnight called. Todoroki advances. No sheet. Eraser head. Present mic began. What the hell are you teaching your students? I didn't teach him that. Todoroki and Zero returned to the viewing area, Zero still shaking from the cold. Todoroki's expression was back to its usual state of indifference. Kakashi suddenly found that expression unsettling, like Todoroki was a predator lying stock-still in wait. Whoa man, are you okay? Kirishima asked, standing up the second Zero walked back into the room. Fine, Zero replied. Slightly humiliated that I lost in less than a second? Yeah. But other than that I'm good. You're freezing, Kirishima continued. Does anyone have a jacket Zero could borrow? Dude, I'm fine. Besides, we're all in our gym uniforms. Of course no one has a jacket. Kirishima didn't look happy about that. Kakashi briefly remembered striking Zero off of his list of suspects he'd check over first due to the boy mother Henenji him, and wondered why in the world he hadn't crossed Kirishima off too. Kirishima also had Aizawa's word going for him due to his actions at the USJ, so Kakashi figured he might be safe to cross off. Then again, Todoroki and Midoriya had Aizawa's word going for them too, and that was going great. I mean, Kaminari spoke up. I don't have a jacket, but I do have a Bakugu. Kaminari slung an arm around Bakugu and pulled him close. And he's like a walking furnace. Free of charge too. F off, dunce face. Bakugu snapped, pulling away from Kaminari, who pouted at having lost his heat source. I'm not your DMN personal heater. Kaminari stretched his arms above his head. I dunno, you sure kept me warm while we were waiting for that iceberg to melt. Bakugu glared at him. No thanks, Zero said slowly. I already got popsicled, I'd rather not get blown up too. Touché. Kirishima opened his mouth to say something, only to get cut off by Present Mix screaming. That ice took forever for us to clear, but now we're back and ready to rumbly. For our second match, we have, from Class 1A, Midoriya Izuku versus his classmate, Aoyama Yuga. That drew everyone's attention away from Zero and back towards the arena, where Midoriya was standing on the pitch, looking absolutely terrified, while Aoyama was busy posing. Ready? Set? Begin. Aoyama's laser blasted first, the light bright and shining and not unlike Todoroki's ice in the way it drew everyone's attention. Midoriya scrambled out of the way of the beam, barely dodging it before another was shot at him. Midoriya ducked, feet slipping out from underneath him in his haste, chin nearly slamming into the concrete, which would have been an awful way to lose, and then scrambled back to his feet. Kakashi saw the green-haired boy ready himself to flick his finger at the same time he noticed Aoyama release another attack. When the two forces combined, they boomed with an explosion that felt like Bakugu had decided to join the fight. The pressure wave that emanated from the blast was intense. Kakashi heard glass shatter from the various window-ed areas in the arena and felt his eardrums scream under the pressure. He shook his head to clear the disorientation, wondering if the UA Sports Festival was supposed to be this intense. He was inclined to say no, but with each passing round he was beginning to doubt that thought. Midoriya and Aoyama must have both been blasted backwards by the collision as well because they were scrambling to their feet now. On the screens, Kakashi could see Midoriya's determined expression and Aoyama's rightfully terrified one. The boy had probably never seen someone face his laser like that head-on. Before Aoyama could prepare to attack again, Midoriya was moving. Rushing forward, fingers prepared to flick another powerful shockwave at Aoyama. Aoyama made to counter, and Kakashi braced himself for another devastating explosion, except it never came. Midoriya dodged the beam, waited until the second it was done, and then fired. The force of the blast sent Aoyama flying, and Kakashi winced as he watched Aoyama skid across the pavement, shirt tearing as he crossed the boundary line. Midnight's WHP snapped. Aoyama is out of bounds. Midoriya advances. Kakashi reached up and rubbed at his ears, hoping the pain would go away soon. That shockwave had been no joke, and if he was affected by it, he couldn't imagine what everyone else was feeling. He glanced over and saw his classmates doing the same thing he was, though Kaminari was going the extra mile by trying to drink a soda while rubbing his ear with his free hand. That was absolutely insane. Present Mike yelled. Midoriya and Aoyama's quirks combined to form one massive blast. I hope all you folks are okay down there, because it's time to move on to our next matchup. Oh sheet, Kaminari said, nearly choking on his drink as he stood up. I'm up. Wish me luck, guys. Luck, man, Kirishima yelled, giving him a thumbs up. Kaminari sprinted out of the room, and Kakashi distinctly heard the sounds of shoes squeaking against the corridor floor as Kaminari skidded through the halls. Returning his gaze to the screen, Kakashi saw that Kaminari was meant to face off against Ishido. A brief glimpse around told him that Ishido had already gone to her waiting room, far more prepared for this than Kaminari was. First up, from Class 1A, is there a purpose for those things on her head? It's Ishido Mina. Present Mike yelled, and Kakashi caught sight of Ishido running into the arena, all peace signs and bright smiles. Versus her classmate who was part of last round's winning team, it's Kaminari Denki. The pause. Kaminari sprinted out of the gate, all panic and poorly disguised exhaustion conducive to having run all the way from the stands to the arena. Kakashi chuckled at his expense. Kaminari came to a stop on the turf and flashed a big smile for the camera. Well, at least he had a good media personality going for him. Kakashi leaned forward in interest. He wasn't sure which way this would go. Ishido was agile and strong, with a quirk that suited her needs. Kaminari was neither of those, but had a powerful quirk that was perfect for one-on-one fights like this one. The screen showed Kaminari's mouth moving. Kakashi didn't need to know what the blonde was saying to know that he was both flirting and trash-talking. The stupid smirk on his face gave him away. The buzzer sounded, and Ishido moved. Kakashi's heart pounded in anticipation. He'd seen Nin move like her before, the ones that glided gracefully across the water jutsus they'd created, the ones that fought like it was an art and they were the medium, the ones that killed as though it were the most appealing thing in the world. Those were the ones that were dangerous. Ishido slid across her acid, moving in a circle around a careful Kaminari, who seemed to be waiting for something. What? Kakashi didn't know. Ishido threw a handful of acid forward and it hit Kaminari's shirt before he could dodge, the liquid corroding the fabric in a matter of seconds, leaving behind a gaping hole over his chest. Ishido moved in during that moment of weakness, and that's when Kakashi understood what Kaminari had been waiting for. Kaminari was, for all intents and purposes, an idiot. The boy was overly friendly, kind of a ditz, and absolutely horrible at doing anything that could be perceived as genius. The absolute last thing Kakashi would look for in a traitor. But then there were times like this. When Kaminari's gaze focused, sharpening, the gold of his irises looking more like fire than like honey. When the air around him started to tingle in anticipation, the electrodes buzzing, waiting, ready to react the second Kaminari unleashed the power he had stored inside him. The moments when Kaminari suddenly stopped being such an idiot and started looking like someone who knew how to be dangerous. These were the moments when Kakashi started to wonder if the seemingly dumb blonde was all he was cracked up to be. Ishido got close, her acid covering the floor of the arena around herself and Kaminari, and that's when Kaminari released his quirk. The zap of electricity crackled through the air, feeling as though a small lightning bolt had been unleashed, even though Kakashi knew that the blonde wasn't nearly powerful enough for that. The currents raced through the acid coating the ground, all of the electricity converging on Ishido, who hit the ground hard in a matter of milliseconds. Kakashi released a breath he hadn't been aware he was holding. The crowd around him did the same, and then broke out into thunderous cheering that Kakashi couldn't stick around to appreciate. He stood from his chair, noticing Ida getting up from his as well. They both made their way to their separate tunnels without a word to each other, while Kakashi listened to Midnight announce Kaminari's victory formally. He stepped into the tunnel at the same time a beaming Kaminari entered from the other side. "Dude!" Kaminari exclaimed, rushing up to Kakashi. "Did you see that? Did you frickin' see that?" Kakashi gave Kaminari a warm smile. "I saw. You looked pretty cool out there." Kaminari squealed in excitement, bouncing around the tunnel like a child who had just gotten a bucket full of candy that they were free to eat. Then suddenly he stopped. "I should probably go check on Ishido." The mood changed through Kakashi for a loop. "Why?" "Well," Kaminari rubbed his hand along the back of his neck. My electricity hurts, you know? And I hit her pretty hard. I really hope she's okay. Conflicting thoughts plagued Kakashi's mind. He didn't want to think that Kaminari could be the traitor he was looking for. The boy was bright and cheery, reminding him of blue-eyed blondes from a lifetime that Kakashi could only sustain for as long as he had the energy for. He'd introduced Kakashi to everyone in the class, had taken him in before the others felt comfortable enough to even talk to him. Kaminari was kind, and Kakashi had used that. He'd more or less placed the success of his mission onto Kaminari's shoulders, whether the boy knew it or not. But that look in Kaminari's eyes, the way he'd attacked in such a calculating way, that wasn't like the Kaminari he knew. It suggested something sinister that Kakashi didn't want to consider but had to because it was his job. But here Kaminari was worrying about Ishido, just like the Kaminari that Kakashi knew. Was it an act? He placed a hand on Kaminari's shoulder. I'm sure she'd love having you check on her, but give Recovery Girl some time to heal her up. That old woman'll probably beat you with her cane if you interrupt her right now. Kaminari's eyes widened, and Kakashi caught the sight of something shining in them, almost like tears, before the boy threw his head back and laughed. You're so right, dude. Kaminari grinned. Besides, I gotta watch your match. Speaking of, Kaminari grabbed Kakashi by the shoulders, spinning him around towards the tunnel exit and pushing him forward. You're up next. Kakashi gave him a thumbs up. I'll make sure to win so that I can take you down next round. You better. Kaminari's grin was wild and infectious. Good luck, dude. And watch out for Ida's reciproburst, that thing'll take even you out in seconds. What? You know, Kaminari gestured to his leg with his hands. It's how our team won the cavalry battle. I dunno, torques up his engines until he goes nyum, but like, faster than usual. Kakashi hated that he understood that explanation. Got it, I'll look out for it. Thanks. You betcha, my man. Have fun tearing our class rep a new one. Kakashi nodded, heard his name get called, and then turned and entered the arena for his match against Ida Tenya.